There you go. Hold on. Let's see.
Paul W. Smith Show. News Talk 760 WJR.
We've gone totally cosmic here. Now that is an open. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday. A chillier start. My goodness, the temperatures, the bottom fell out. We're back in the teens, so prepare yourselves as you head out the door. We got the whole gang. We've got almost the entire original cast of the Guy Gordon Show here today. We got Michael Parsons on the board, Marie Osborne doing news today, and of course, Dana Clark and Ann Thomas, the regulars here on the Paul W. Smith Show, and we're bringing it to you live, of course, on Facebook. If you'd like to join us there. It's some interesting things that we got to get to today. I wanted to kind of hit on something we're going to be talking about later on in the show, and that's this notion, we talked about it briefly yesterday, that a state lawmaker has promoted legislation that would allow bars to stay open past 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning. It would still be up to local communities whether or not they wanted to allow that extension, so it's really more of a granting of permission if they want to do it. I don't know how many that will. What do you think about that? We just had a fire chief almost go off the lodge yesterday. You know, are you swiping to the left?
Yes.
Thank you. For those of you that don't use Tinder,
I just know about it.
yeah, I've just heard about it from my friends. I've never actually used it. But curious as to what you think about that and which communities you think would embrace it. My concern is that college towns would be the first in the pool, and they are the absolute last. They're the least experienced drinkers, perhaps the most undisciplined. It's not necessarily what we would need there. Your thoughts on this?
Oh, I think it's ridiculous. There's got to be something else to do at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, go to sleep.
Idea. Sleep.
Well,
Have breakfast. Do something.
For a minute there, you sounded like the governor of New York. I'm
not a fan. And I know that some of our listeners and viewers are saying that, people do shift work and they might want to stop by for a drink. But I just don't get it. It's not something I think we need to do. And it pops up every now and again and usually doesn't work out.
Yeah, I'm curious, and is the notion of that we're doing this to help the barkeeps. I texted my favorite saloon keeper last night, and he said, if they think that this is going to bring me more revenue, they're right. But what it's also going to bring me is higher costs. It's going to bring me greater liability, which is higher costs. I'm going to have to add security. And on top of that, he goes, I can't get enough people to stay here till 2 a.m. as it is, much less 4 a.m. She goes, I'm not sure who they think they're helping.
Yeah.
And that's the most important perspective, what he's saying.
Well, yeah. When the segment of the economy that you think you're helping, so we'll talk to Ryan Berman about that later today. But I just, I don't know, Marie, how many drunk driving accidents have you covered in your career?
Yeah, a ton.
Oh dear.
Marie
we're
has
gonna
a special echo today.
we're going to we'll fix that. But I got to tell you, that changes your perspective. When you stand at an accident scene, and Ann, you've done this, and Marie's nodding her head. I will give you I will pass along Marie's nonverbal cues. When you do that, it does change your perspective. When you see young people cut out of a car with the jaws of life,
It's horrible.
it changes your perspective.
Yes, significantly. Yes.
I did a horrible thing to a date once. You get so used to coming up on accident scenes, and I was taking a date home. And there was a horrible accident on the freeway, and she was a nurse. And I said, I've got a medical professional in the car here. This person's been in an accident, and we literally were first on the scene. This is before cell phones. So I said, go render whatever aid you can. And she kind of looked at me and jumped out of the car and ran. And I went and found a state trooper on the freeway. The problem was I didn't realize my date worked in obstetrics. She'd never seen a dead body before. It was horrible. But
most people haven't, Guy.
Yeah, this is why I may have had trouble getting dates in Grand Rapids when I was single. Oh, look, a news story. Let's stop and see what's happening.
I took my sister to a news story one time too, and I got in a lot of trouble for that. My mom and dad didn't appreciate my ideas. I was driving her to school, and there was a big story, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I got to go cover it." And I veered right off to cover the news story.
How old was she?
Wow, Annie.
She was a lot younger. She was in high school. It just wasn't the best idea.
At least she wasn't 7.
Yes, exactly.
She did not follow you into the business?
No, she did not. Nobody cared for that idea that day.
Oh.
But I did get the story.
I want you to think about this. When we come back, we've all gone to the polls. We've all looked at a rostrum of multiple, like a primary. We have multiple candidates. Mm-hmm. And how often have we said, geez, I wish I could choose more than one because while I really like this person, they don't have a chance maybe, but so I don't want this other person getting in, so I'm going to vote for this person. What if you had the opportunity to vote for as many candidates as you wanted to? We'll discuss that next on the Paul W. Smith Show as we roll along on your Tuesday morning. Let's check in with Dana Clark, WGR Traffic first.
Traffic first, sponsored by the Carpenters Labor Management Partnership Team. Hire the Carpenter LMPT contractors for your next construction project. Their workforce is the best in Michigan, professional, safety conscious, and craft trained for every project. Hire the Carpenters LMPT contractors today. Call 877-477-LMPT. That's 877-477-LMPT. Just looking at construction out there in Madison Heights, 13-mile eastbound and westbound, right under 75. This construction project actually going to kick off tomorrow evening at 10 p.m. All lanes will schedule to be closed until 5 a.m. on Monday. That's for overpass demolition. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Amish Direct Furniture. Amish Direct Furniture carries a huge variety of high-quality handmade furniture made here in the USA. Stop by Amish Direct's new showroom in Sterling Heights. Meet their knowledgeable staff or shop online at AmishDirect.com. That's AmishDirect.com.
And let's get some thoughts from Rush on this Tuesday afternoon.
To Politico,
Tuesday
California
morning.
is about to become the first state to offer full health coverage to undocumented adults, i.e. illegal immigrants. This adds to policies that Governor Jerry Brown implemented in 2015, which granted full health care coverage to children here illegally.
Can I ask
California
a silly
already
question?
gives illegal adults free
Does
emergency.
Amish... Oop.
Okay, no echo.
How does Marie sound on the? It seems muted. This is weird. And Ann, you are muted.
So the way this is like we usually let Rush play on the stream. We don't have to.
Oh,
We
okay.
do. But when he's on, I think we're on the air. Is that right, Mike?
Well, I have you guys potted down. You guys can talk to
We can talk to amongst ourselves here.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what's going on with Marie. Marie, how about I get you on the phone here and you guys can talk amongst yourself and try to figure this out. I'm gonna give him back Rush, okay?
You don't have to. We'll just talk amongst ourselves today.
Okay, Marie, I'm gonna take you out and call you, okay?
Yep. Good idea.
Okay.
Okay.
I was going to ask Amish Direct Furniture. Do they deliver in a horse-drawn buggy?
Yes. No.
Do they play? We once
do.
years ago got cabinets.
Yes.
Were amazing. They were so well done.
Yeah.
Some commenters on Facebook don't think it's such a great idea, maybe to extend that bar thing to 4 a.m. It is, and by the way, folks, we've got Mike Parsons in. He doesn't normally do this StreamYard system, so he's trying to feel his way. He's my board guy in the afternoon, so be patient with him as we try to balance the StreamYard stuff. But yeah, you do look at. Mark says, during my career, seeing the jaws of life cut people out of vehicles makes you look at life in a different way. Amen to that. And Patrick is nudging Mike. Good for you, Patrick.
Oh, we run a tight ship in the morning.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, it really does seem like it's a liability nightmare. If you were to do that, I got to believe that a lot of these bars would see their liability costs go up should they choose to stay open. And they're right. Not only are you perhaps putting your patrons in jeopardy, you're putting your staff in jeopardy. Because the kind of clientele you draw between 2 and 4 is a little different than the kind of clientele you draw between 9 and midnight.
And for 2 more hours, is it worth it?
Yeah.
I like what Bill says. If you want to drink at 4 a.m.,
Right.
Get
there earlier. I don't think that. I don't think
Well,
this is going to fly.
And Bill, that's a good point. And I don't know that I'm so old now. I don't even know if I could do that. But it's interesting. If I can see this in cities where they have a really bad blind pig problem, where you've got a lot of after-hours bars that are causing a lot of disruption because they're totally unregulated, they're untaxed, it's
Speaking of
totally rogue.
drinking at night, though, what exactly is going on here with the fire department, the Detroit Fire Department? They are under the microscope. That is kind of an interesting story, that there's some partying going on in there.
Well,
in
the one
some
that
of the firehouses.
the one that happened last week was interesting because it was clear that the entire company, the entire station house, was poop faced, and they didn't take them. They didn't take those guys out of service, which is just that to me was what was mind boggling. And Sean Lay has been doing a lot of reporting on that. We'll have him on later, but I get a little bit. Just because you've got 2 incidents that appear connected doesn't mean that they are, or mean that it's a systemic problem, right? They're still individual incidents.
Right.
But did you see where that car ended up yesterday? The fire chief? Dana, you know how we have the embankments? He hit a fence. He was sitting on his vehicle was sitting on the fence over the lodge. So over the side embankment. It's a wild picture.
Hanging over the lodge.
Yeah, I think it's the Detroit News has it. It was crazy. And they keep, and in Sean's piece, you keep hearing them on the radio calling for him. Chief 5, where are you? Well, Chief 5 was hanging on for dear life.
Oh, Lord.
And when they got him out of the vehicle, they took him into custody.
Yeah.
But it's the one that was earlier that was just crazy. The idea that there was this level of tolerance that they didn't say, we're taking you all out and you're all on suspension and you're all.
Yeah.
And wasn't it something where somebody was driving one of the big rigs and they were worried that there was some alcohol being consumed? And that's a bigger, it's all dangerous, but can you imagine that?
And they hit a woman's car.
North Brothers Ford encourages you to contribute to Angel's Place. Walk in the footsteps of those moms to serve adults with developmental disabilities. Contribute today or throughout the month of March at angelsplace.com.
It is nice to see the control room.
Kind of cool.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
We got some comments on Facebook. Jane says, I was also a bartender when I was younger. Couldn't wait for 2:30 to close up. I can't imagine being there until 4 a.m. Bill says, if you want to drink at 4 a.m., do it at home. And
Amen, Bill.
Mark weighing in and saying, during my career, seeing the jaws of life used does change your perspective. And we have Marie back. And Marie, you would agree with that? Oh, maybe we don't have Marie back.
Still a no-go.
Marie's been
Where's your cat, Marie?
so wanted to get, and we'll talk about this other thing coming up at 6, but I did want to get your take. Today, the voters of St. Louis are going to go to the polls, and they have 4 candidates on the ballot for mayor. But unlike a lot of towns where you just vote for one and then maybe the top 2 will run off against each other, in St. Louis, you can vote for more than one. So you get your first choice and your second choice. Now, some cities have this in some states. I think Maine and one other has what they call ranked choice voting, where you get your first choice, second choice, and if you want to, your third choice. And they think it helps more third-party candidates have a chance, that you get more choice. And also, in the end, instead of a plurality choosing your mayor or dog catcher, you ultimately will get a majority doing it. In this case, you can just vote for as many as you want, and then the top 2 will run off against each other. But what do you think of that? How often have you been in the ballot box and said, you know what, I'm not pleased with all the choices I've got? And Mike, you can weigh in on this.
Mike's like, I've got my hands
Mike's going, if I have to
Talking
add
about
one
ranked
more
voting there, guys.
person.
Sorry, I'm trying to troubleshoot Marie's issue
Okay,
here.
no, I'm sorry, buddy.
Well, for the record, I'm actually a fan of ranked choice voting because I think I don't think anyone's really ever excited to vote for who they're going to vote for. So if you have like, these are the people I would least hate to see in office, I think that's a more honest way of voting.
You know, that goes back to when Ross Perot voted. My wife still busts my chops over the fact that I voted for him. But I wanted to have his voice in the campaign. I wanted to have fiscal responsibility and concern about the debt in the campaign. But I knew that he wasn't going to win and that it was going to dilute the total. If I had voted for 2, I wouldn't have knocked out maybe the one person that I did want to keep in, right?
That's an interesting point. It is an
That's
interesting
too
idea.
much going on. No. Swipe left again. Everything left today. That's too much happening.
Okay.
You're doing too many chess moves.
So
I do this,
basically-
I do that. No, one person.
Okay, I'm already designing a voting system, Dana, for you.
Right.
It will be like Tinder. Instead of actually putting a check
Right.
by someone's name, it's just going to be swipe left,
See?
swipe right.
More people would vote. No, I'm just kidding.
Don says, try working the polls first. People have a hard enough time choosing one candidate.
Exactly.
And
That
Don, that's a
right
really
about
good
that.
point.
Too
How much
much.
extra time will people stand in the polling? Since they don't, I mean, do you guys actually come with a mock ballot? Have you ever done that where you've printed up your ballot and then you just check it in when you get there
No.
to save time?
I do ballot ahead of time though and look through it. I know what I'm doing when I get there, so I can.
Well, it is an interesting thing, and I think unfortunately we just lost Ann. She froze. They're
We're losing them fast.
it's dropping like flies. It's
Oh, she's back.
but it's an interesting thing. I do think it's worth exploring. The ranked choice voting, it's statistically and from a management standpoint, it's more difficult because you actually the clerks have to then find out who was second, who was third, who was fourth. You kind of have to sort it all out in a point system. Here, it's just you can vote for as many people as you want, and whoever ends up the top 2 runs off against one another. So we'll see what happens down in St. Louis. The reason they're doing it down there is that they've had a white mayor for the past 20 years, even though a plurality of St. Louis voters are black. Mm-hmm. And so it ended up being that in the north part of St. Louis, the African-American vote kept getting split, and their candidates never rose to the top. And so they think this is a way to have some racial equity, and to make sure that some folks, I guess, I would say, just like here in Detroit, if you're worried about someone not getting in, then coalesce behind them. You don't have to split your vote. When we come back, a bit of a kerfuffle over 2 things. First of all, Robert Gordon got a sweetheart deal as he resigned, and I'm putting that in air quotes. And then also, U of M going with a virtual commencement, and that has some folks now passing around a petition saying, we need to be in person. We paid a lot of money. We invested a lot in this kid. We want to see them get their diploma. Let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic first. Back with more on the Paul W. Smith Show.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Still a quiet start out there, Guy. No reported accidents, no delays. Upcoming construction tomorrow, 13-mile road, both directions, eastbound and westbound, right under 75. At Wednesday, 10 p.m., all lanes will shut down until 5 a.m. on Monday. That's for that overpass demolition. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Primetime Testing Laboratory. Interior trim, low floors, instrument panels, visors, steering wheel, seating. If it's in the car, Primetime Test It. They are the automotive industry's most accurate result reporting and guaranteed on-time delivery for your next automotive project. Get a free quote at primetimetestinglab.com. That's primetimetestinglab.com. Chilly start this morning. Currently clear skies, 15 degrees, but we'll get sunshine all day today. Abundant sunshine, a high of 40. Tonight, clear skies, your low freezing down to 32. On Wednesday, partly to mostly cloudy. We ditched the raindrops, it looks like, and a high of 52. Back down to the 30s on Thursday, clouds, then sun, a high of 38. Once again, 15 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in about 2 minutes.
This is Maria Monti, tax partner from Metro Detroit.
Dana, that's a roller coaster of temperatures.
Yeah, it is. 20, 20 degrees here and
50
there.
and then back in the 30s and
Not time yet. Not
in the
time.
spring.
Now, Don, I didn't say anything about qualifications. Why would you go there? Why do you jump to that conclusion?
These people are, they'll give it to you this in the morning.
I didn't mention anything about skin color or qualification. Skin color, they saw a plurality of folks not getting in, even though a plurality of folks were black, and they felt that meant that their candidate was not getting in. Had nothing to do with qualifications. Interesting
They
leap.
just
Our
got to get
panels
out there and
like
vote.
fired up in the morning. They wake
Oh.
you right up before 6 o'clock.
It's just always interesting the interpretations that people come up with here.
Yes,
They called me Angela Davis one morning, so that's
I would like to see you with Angela Davis's hair.
so that's how they do. Yeah.
By the way, we were talking yesterday about Netflix shows. If you get a chance, try out the new Kaylee Cuoco show
I
on
saw it. The flight attendant.
The Flight Attendant.
Yeah, it was different. It was definitely different. We watched a couple and they were like, okay, this is almost too silly. But then we went back and we're like, all right, fine. Well, we've watched all of Netflix, so we might as well finish watching it. So we finished it.
Well, I've only gotten, I think, one episode in.
Oh, okay.
But to me, it really kind of defined what a dramedy is.
Yes.
It was really funny in some places and then really suspenseful in others.
And it's anything that's a half an hour, I'll get, because to me, you can get through them quickly. And so, we finished it. I won't tell you what happens, but it was.
Don says, why talk about skin color at all? Because it was important to the people with skin color down in St. Louis that their candidates kept getting shut out. That's it. It was one of the reasons why it was a relevant reason in the story. That's why I brought it up. Sorry it made you uncomfortable, Don.
I kind of think that Dana's point, though, is well taken on this. I mean, going to the polls and voting for more than one candidate, it could get confusing. And also, that's going to make an awful lot of work for poll workers, I mean, how can they do that and be fair about the community? I kind of get what they're trying to do, but so I understand that totally. But is there another way to do it? I guess not.
Without having to go to voter approval or ranked choice voting.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the point. I mean, people are feeling like they're being left out of the process or there's it's not fair enough. So that part of it makes sense. But is there another way? Because Dana's right. You're going to vote, and then those poll workers are going to. Could you imagine doing that across the country?
Well, see, I don't know that it was the poll. I mean, obviously, if you're going to do this, there's going to be software involved that's going to tabulate it based on what it does is it weights your choices. They do it based on points. So your first choice gets so many points, your second choice gets so many points, and so on.
And what happens if there's a recount?
And how do you know what's the first and second and third choice? How do you know
It'll
that?
be all computerized at the end of the day.
Like what you select first?
So I think the way they do it, Dana, is like if your first choice would be worth, if you were allowed 3 choices, it would be 5, 3, and 1.
But how do you know which one I chose first?
Because you would rank it when you do your ballot. You would say, this is my first choice, and then that one would be weighted, and then the second choice.
Got it.
And the software would. Now, for people that already have terrible mistrust in the software
That's what I
anyway,
was going to say.
boy, you're making.
Then that's no.
We'll be off to the. Can you imagine? We'll be off to the races on that one. People will be criticizing the software, and although
and I didn't choose that one first, and I meant to do this, and it's just too much.
Yeah, I think Dana's still swiping. Are you still swiping
I'm
left?
still swiping left. Come on, guy, give me a choice to swipe right.
So far you haven't really given her much this morning.
Right.
Let me see. Swipe right. I know this really cool guy named Trevor.
Swipe right.
Okay, there you go.
That's a right swipe.
There you go. So here's a question the guy had brought up. That I'd kind of like to get into in this week at least, and maybe Trevor could give us some insight, Dana. Are we going to be able to go watch Tiger baseball? Like, are we going to be able to go to opening day? Or
question? I will ask him right now. He thinks no, but they are letting some people in hockey. He said more family and more certain people are able to go to the game. Because I was looking the other day, I'm like, there looks like a couple of people in the seat. So maybe as the vaccine continues to, be administered, maybe it will get a little more lax, but I'll see what he thinks today. But yeah, it would be nice to go to a baseball game, right? Outside.
But
you can certainly socially distance.
Yeah. So, I mean, you would think they would try to do that.
At a limited capacity, do you think?
At a limited capacity. So I'll see what he thinks today. I'll report back tomorrow.
Could you report back? Because, we're coming up on.
It's they had their first game for their first spring training.
And they're able to watch spring training, right?
Hey, Dana, real quick, which access are you going to dial in on after the roundtable?
After I go off. I'm still on one. Access.
You're going to be on one?
Yeah, all day.
Okay, great. Here we come.
I usually stay on there. Unless you need me to switch. Okay.
No, I just didn't know which one you went to.
Okay. Yep, I stay.
So closed circuit for Patrice, when you purchased your season tickets, did they was there a waiver there, or was there a refund policy so that you can get that money back if they don't have in?
Paul W. Smith Show, News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host Guy Gordon.
And good morning once again, everybody. If you suffer from temperature whiplash, we can hardly blame you. We went from, close to the 50s on Sunday. Monday down into the upper 30s. Today we're back in the teens. So prepare for it as you head out the door, because whatever you're wearing on Sunday, you're going to need 2 or 3 of them to get through the day.
Roller coaster.
Yeah, a real roller coaster. But isn't that what March is?
It is.
Is March your least favorite month, or is it April?
Yes, March. No, you know what? I'll say February for me.
Oh.
Is it? See, I love the snow. And
I love too many birthdays. Sorry. March. Well, Trevor's birthday's in March. Oh, January. Oh, my mom's birthday. And see, you can't pick a month.
You're swiping left on so many things today, Dana.
Yes, Dana. We need something for a swipe right on Dana.
Yes, but those March is a rough one, because you're almost there, but not quite, and it teases you a little bit. You're like,
And it doesn't look so swell out here in Michigan. It's a little drab, little muddy.
Well, let's look ahead to spring a little bit. And spring brings weddings, and they also bring commencement ceremonies. And in Ann Arbor, at the University of Michigan, they now have a Change.org petition with more than 5,500 signatures from students and parents saying, please hold an in-person commencement, please. And this was drafted by a number of students. Sonia Levinson was one that talked to Local 4 News, and she said this, basically a plea for commencement. Cut one, please, Mike.
Fact that, the university has not put in the effort to like make more in-person experiences happen, unlike other schools that have successfully done so, is really frustrating.
And then there's Cindy Schnoll. She is a mom among many mothers who said, you know what? You might think that because you cancel commencement that we're not coming, but we're coming to Ann Arbor. Cut three.
We're coming in to celebrate. My daughter and all of her friends and all of her parents. It's not as though canceling graduation and making it virtual is actually going to, it's actually going to stop people from coming in.
So in other words, if you were hoping to make this a healthier space because you're going to keep visitors away, it isn't happening. We're going to come and celebrate anyway. Rick Fitzgerald is the spokesperson for U of M. He said, look, I totally get it. Cut four.
I understand that missing an in-person commencement is incredibly disappointing to these students, but they have a lifetime. That Michigan degree lasts forever.
It does, but so do memories of commencements. And he says, look, we've got to follow what our health experts are telling us, and they're telling us that it's safer if we cancel in-person commencements. Cut two.
We have both the School of Public Health and one of the nation's leading medical centers. And all of those experts have been advising us to say that they and their families should travel to Ann Arbor for a commencement ceremony. It just doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do.
So, I mean, we've all been there. We've had kids graduate. We've been graduates ourselves. Even though I didn't go through my commencement. I can't remember why. I think it's because I'd already started working. But what do you think? Do they are the moms and students that are circulating this petition making a good point?
Well, I understand their sentiment, but they've got to follow the science. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to criticize the university when the university is saying we're trying to follow the science. One point that Rick Fitzgerald made was that they're reluctant to have people travel to Ann Arbor. And right now, some people are still concerned about travel, and so many students are not from Michigan. So there is that element that you understand. But then you hear the moms saying, well, we're still going to hang out in Ann Arbor, no matter. So it's a tough decision, but they are trying to follow the science.
Don't you love it when moms go rogue? I just, I can see my mom doing that. By God, they can't tell me.
She says we're still coming. Coming where? To the building or just to Ann Arbor?
I think to Ann Arbor.
I don't know if you have a.
There. You're just.
Well, you can have a commencement tailgate, I guess. Mike, what do you think? And the other side of this is you do have a field house that seats 100,000 people. So you could get them in and get them out, I think, in a responsible way, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the only place I think you could maybe do it safely is a big house because it holds 100,000 people and it's open air, but yeah, I don't know. I'm with you, Guy. I didn't. By the time I was done with college, I was done. I was sick of graduation ceremonies. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just what we have to deal with in these times we're living in.
And they take so long too. They're hours and hours. You fall asleep. Like, what are they still on? Oh, and okay, so back to sleep. There you go. Oh, okay.
I mean, Dana is still swiping left.
I'm still swiping left. There's. No.
Your name is Clark, for goodness sakes. You were at the front of the line, lady.
She got to leave before the rest of us.
Talk to Thomas and Osborne here, who had to wait to the last half of the alphabet.
You still got to sit there. Like, you still have to, you can't, like, creep out, like, go.
Well, how many people can be in a stadium right now? What are the state guidelines? It is a relatively small number still. So that's probably part of the problem. Because U of M's graduation is earlier than most. So that is part of the issue.
So even if you were to go, let's say, with 25%, which is, what we're doing in restaurants, and I don't know if large venues, I think that they have a max based on square footage. But I mean, you can rewrite the rules for specific events, right? You don't have to necessarily be totally consistent. So they could rewrite rules just for this. And I think Michigan State is doing in-person commencements to some extent. It'll be interesting to see what their guidelines are. But it's something, and I can totally relate to parents saying, "Look, I saved, I scraped, I went into debt, I did all of this. This is my moment.
You're walking across that stage,
and I want to see you do it." Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
But this is such a precarious time, everybody. I mean, we're still not out of the woods.
Well, but it also doesn't mean you don't have to attend. Again, it comes down to choice and your own risk assessment. And if you want to.
However, but that concept of, let's protect the vulnerable and keep them, sequestered, and then everybody else should go and do whatever they want. The issue with that type of thinking is that if you have a surge in cases in the community, the vulnerable will eventually be in danger. So, this is the worst case scenario here, and I get that. But I'm just saying that, okay, if you don't want to go, you don't have to. You can watch it online. Well, then you amass all these people in the stadium. They all get sick. Then what happens to the community? I'm just devil's advocate here.
Listener David weighed in on Facebook and said, "I had 2 daughters graduate last year. It was tough to not experience the normal celebration. Give these individuals the memories they have worked for." Yeah, and I agree with you, David. Of course, the concern is that COVID could be also a memory that you have years afterwards if the family gets sick. I totally understand where parents and students are on this. It's like so many things we've had to sacrifice. We'll be back with more on the Paul W. Smith Show. When we come back, we'll check in with Rebecca Manus. She is looking at the notion of whether or not we are, as parents, seeking attention deficit diagnoses because we're having problems with our kids with remote learning. We'll want to get into that next on the Paul W. Smith Show. But first, let's check in with Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Still nice and quiet out there. No reported accidents, no delays. Let's check on that construction project in Novi. 14-mile road, both directions, eastbound and westbound, between Novi Road and M5. Still closed there through early April for water main installation. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by the National Electrical Contractors Association, NECA. Put the expertise and skill of NECA signatory contractors to work on your commercial, public, industrial, or residential construction project. NECA contractors like Monroe Electric Company are powering Michigan's future project after project, on time and on budget. Learn more at smcneca.org.
High pressure's back, sunshine back, cold start, much colder start than yesterday, and plenty of sun later. The north-northwest breeze will shift around to the southwest, 42. Tonight, clear, 31. Suburbs colder. Wednesday, a mix of clouds and sunshine, high near 51. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Staging on News Talk 760 WJR.
Visit consumersenergy.com/cold weather for a wide range of tips to keep you safe while saving money on your bill. If you're struggling to pay bills, assistance is available. Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has reduced requirements for state emergency relief. Apply through MI Bridges, that's MI Bridges, or call 211 to connect with resources in your community. Learn more at consumersenergy.com/cold weather. That's consumersenergy.com/cold weather. You can count on Consumers Energy.
Well, that was a relief we got Marie on for the last. I texted her. I did nothing. I said, "How'd you fix it?"
I saw Ray pop in. I think Ray fixed it.
Says Ray told. Oh. You know what Ray had her do? Exit and re-enter.
Seriously?
Yeah. That should have been the first thing I suggested. Oh well. Well, I'm glad it worked.
Oh wow, yeah.
So while we're in break here, and for those that are listening on Facebook, we're going to be going into a tape segment that we did yesterday. But this notion that parents are increasing their calls to physicians 20% to inquire about ADHD. The scenario is this: they've got the kids home for school, and they're finally seeing behaviors in their child, or they're having trouble getting their child to sit to do virtual learning, and they're saying, well, they've got to be ADHD, or they're at least inquiring about it, and then asking for meds. And so, and you'll hear in this interview, I mean, I asked this, I've got a suspicion that we've got some overwhelmed parents, or maybe parents, I hate to say this, that don't want to exercise control over their kids, and so they're looking to medicate them or get this diagnosis that will make their job less tough.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's a really cynical interpretation of it. I met the guy who originated the ADHD diagnosis. He was a Grand Rapids behavior psychologist. And he told me 20 years ago, he said, we've got 10 times more kids being diagnosed with ADHD than what my original diagnosis parameters would have done. He goes, we have gone so crazy on this. He said, every parent thinks that their kid is abnormal because they're wild and not attentive. He goes, being unattentive as a child is a normal thing. That doesn't mean that they are an outlier or ADHD.
Right.
So he was really frustrated because he felt what he had created was being abused.
So, Guy, we're back in 25 seconds. The tape.
I'm gonna.
The last thing is McManus. You say bye, and she says bye back. So I'll just hit the traffic sound, and that's how you'll know when to go.
Okay.
All
So
right.
anyway, those of you that are listening on Facebook, I don't know what your take on that is. You know, when you see a 25% increase, 20% increase in people seeking out this diagnosis, do you think it says more about the child? Maybe virtual learning is exacerbating a problem. I don't know. But for those of you that have done the virtual learning thing, maybe you've got a perspective on this that would be good for the, Paul says sell pills, make money. Honest to God. But listen in on the interview and see what you think. Depression, learning loss when it comes to remote learning and assessing the impact on our kids. But I gotta tell you, another consequence of remote learning that I didn't see coming is that more parents are seeking an ADHD diagnosis and also medication for their children. We turn to a learning specialist and neuroscientist, Dr. Rebecca Manus, here on the Paul W. Smith Show. Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon.
I guess I should say good morning. I'm still working on the other side of the clock. We know that parents are struggling mightily with remote learning and with the additional time they're spending with their kids. Can you tell me just how common is this that they're seeking a doctor's diagnosis?
Well, it is pretty common. It's certainly what I'm seeing in my office. It may not be that they're seeking a diagnosis, but they're seeking information to understand the nature of the difficulty, and they're seeking solutions.
So as they're seeking these solutions, we're talking about medications?
That's certainly one part of a solution for some people. You know, attention is something that is a trait. It happens on a continuum, the same way that reading skill, height, or maybe the ability to hit a baseball happens on a continuum. The ADD diagnosis, which takes place, or it happens for about 2% of adults, and we think somewhere between 4 and 7% of kids, is one part of that continuum. It's the point on the continuum when the gap between the child's ability to sit, listen, activate, sequence, all of those executive functions, when that is statistically different from most other people his age, and therefore it impacts his functioning.
So is it a perception problem that these parents have because they've never really witnessed their children in a classroom environment, or does it turn out in many instances that they're right, that there is an attention deficit problem with their child?
Very often there's a difficulty in what we call executive functions, for which staying focused, impulsivity, difficulty holding on to the information could be part of it. The issue that I have is that it's really important for parents to partner with the school and to seek other experts who are really good listeners and good communicators so that we can understand the why. Once we understand what's going on and why, we can figure out which solutions can make a difference for the child and the family.
Well, I am curious about the why, because in those instances where you do find an attention deficit in a child, was it always there, or has remote learning somehow brought it out of them or exacerbated what might have been a mild issue?
You're hitting all of the high notes for this discussion, my friend. We know that the way that the ADHD diagnosis happens is by referring to criteria that are in the DSM manual, this Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. And if you ever take a look at it, which is it's available online, you'll see that it expects that there's at least a 6-month rear view mirror, that we know that this has been going on for at least 6 months. Given COVID, we're talking about 18 months, right? So first of all, there needs to be a long-standing history. Also, we want to really be understanding the situations in which this appears and the extent to which it's particularly showing up now due to COVID, or maybe if there was an inkling before. Now, having said that, I do have students who truly do have an attention deficit, and they may have compensated better in the past and now can't. But that doesn't mean there aren't solutions to make it better. Again, so much of it is about understanding the nature of it. If medicine will help, great. But then you're ready to really dig in and do good training so that you can move ahead with success and less stress.
I'm worried that a parent that's overwhelmed with having to supervise a remote learning student who's also trying to juggle a job and who feels like they're not doing a very good job of either will seek out this ADHD diagnosis, and whether it's correct or not, there are professionals that will want to please that parent and perhaps will see kids medicated who shouldn't be. Is that a real concern, or am I overreacting here?
You know, as in any field, and certainly when it comes to kids and aspects of learning, I say there's a huge element of caveat emptor. And boy, if parents have due diligence to make sure that the contractor is solid in constructing a deck, or that they're going to somebody who can help their kids do maybe physical therapy in order to make it onto the soccer team, then we really also want to make sure that they're surrounding themselves by ethical, experienced, communicative professionals.
Yeah, but I just worry that parents will do their own self-diagnosis and say, look, I'm certain my kid has ADHD. Let's do something about it, and maybe bias the diagnosis.
Well, hopefully a clinician who's really experienced has both really solid ears to pick up and listen, to absorb the parents' information, also reach out to teachers or maybe coaches, try to get more of a sense of the context. And hopefully that person is also a great communicator in helping to put together a team. I know that the Child Mind Institute, which actually refers quite a few students to me, recently was quoted as saying that they've seen a 20% uptick in requests for ADHD evaluations. Thank goodness Child Mind is very careful at really trying to understand developmental history, the culture of the school, and also what the parents have tried, what the student has tried, so that they can also help the kids develop a sense of agency so that they can kind of learn to be what I call their own CEOs.
We here in Michigan are on the verge of getting upwards of 90% of schools back to in-person learning. So there'll be a lot of kids shifting from remote to in-person. Do you think that will self-correct a lot of these things that parents are worried about now, that once they get the kids out of the house, that this will become less of an issue?
You know, I think it really depends. It depends on how well the schools have prepared for this. It depends on whether the teachers have assistants, assistant teachers, or drawing upon other experts who can help them systematize. It depends whether they've been using certain curricula, which they can easily bring into the school and the relationships they've developed with the kids. You know, I'm working with some kids who are doing beautifully on Zoom because the teachers know how to structure their classes and they use the Zoom rooms really well. They have the kids using workbooks that correspond to the curriculum. And I think that that's going to be more seamless for the teachers who are sort of doing what they think they can, or maybe have not been in touch with the parents, for kids who are at risk for other transitional difficulties. Then I think it's going to be a heavier lift. And then, you know, thank goodness parents are in charge of their kids' learning and are really thinking about how to help the kids have a smoother time.
Well, let's hope it corrects some of it. And Dr. Manus, we so appreciate your expertise on this, because I'm sure it is daunting for parents. We just want to make sure that the diagnosis is correct.
That's true. And parents always know best who's more invested in a child than a parent. And we have to be hopeful that we'll be able to move beyond this and accommodate to all of our kids' needs. It's what they deserve, and it's what they're entitled to according to education law.
Indeed. Dr. Rebecca Manus, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And if you want to weigh on this on Facebook, we invite you to do so. Interesting discussion with Dr. Manus, and we will continue our discussions on the other end of this. Marie's headlines coming your way next. And we're going to talk about this confidentiality agreement that was struck with the former head of the health department and what that means. But first, let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies. When you talk to a Dell Technologies advisor, they're focused on you, ready to offer tailored solutions powered by Intel vPro platform to keep your small business ready for what's next. Call a Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL.
Seeing a slow ride guy along 75 northbound between Dearborn Street and Spring Wells, still accident-free on the roadways. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Michael Perna and the Perna Team Realtors. Worried if this is the right time to sell your home? It's time to call Michael Perna. Michael Perna with Keller Williams Realty guarantees to sell your home at a price and deadline that you agree to, or he'll buy it himself. Call Michael Perna, 844-737-6276, or visit thepernateam.com and start packing. We are expecting it to be a milder day than yesterday, but it's going to drop out once again by Thursday. So a couple of days here in a row, we get temps in the 40s or higher. Lots of sunshine today, a high of 40. Tonight, clear skies, your low 32. For Wednesday, hump day, partly to mostly cloudy, but hitting 52 degrees on Thursday. We drop about 20 once again, back down to 38. Clear skies, 15 degrees, cold start. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 1 minute.
If you're thinking about replacing your windows, I want you to think about plastic.
Okay.
I don't know if Maria's listening. Marie, I teased that we're going to be talking about the Gordon deal coming out. And then we can just
probably isn't, because she's
ready to go into her
doing her news.
Oh, that's right. And she's probably, is she off StreamYard now?
She's off StreamYard.
Just you and me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
we could ask her to pop back into StreamYard, but she can also do it just on her system.
Yeah, that might be better today, just because I'm having better luck with her actual news pod than coming into StreamYard.
So should I tell her to stay on her own?
Well, you know what? Let's have her pop into StreamYard after news. If we can't hear her, we'll tell her to go back to the Access.
So give it a whirl. We did hear her earlier. So.
Yeah, we did. The scientific explanation is that Ray, our engineer, had her exit and re-enter, which is probably something we should have thought of.
All right. I'm going to say, can you pop on StreamYard?
Yeah, it'll give us peace of mind that it's working again.
You know, it's interesting, Ann, how the work that Craig Mauger is doing for the Detroit News, he is really kicking it.
He does a really good job, doesn't he?
And that's a guy that, you know, if I'm not mistaken, he came from the campaign finance watchdog group, right? He was...
Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
He wasn't I don't think Craig was originally a journalist. Now, maybe he was, and he just ended up doing the campaign finance watchdog stuff. But he's got, I didn't have a chance to look through all that stuff, but I mean, they've got emails.
Well,
so they have the kind of material they could get if they could FOIA the governors.
But here's my question. So they weren't on the same page. It's clear what happened here. They're not on the same page with regard to COVID, right?
I think that's what happened.
Yeah, and there was some type of a disagreement about that, and they couldn't come to any resolution as to how to deal with it. And so obviously they couldn't work together. But is it appropriate, and would be a question for a public policy attorney or maybe a public policy expert, is it appropriate to have a confidentiality agreement with our tax money?
No.
So that's the question that I have this
But
morning.
this is the system that we have in Michigan now, where the governor's office and the legislature are not subject to FOIA. We have the worst sunshine laws of virtually any other state in the nation. There are only 2 states in the United States where the Freedom of Information Act does not apply to the executive branch or the legislative branch.
But wouldn't you worry if you were entering into this type of an agreement that it would become public and create a lot of
speculation,
controversy, speculation, and questioning? Because that's the nature of.
Well, and here's the thing. You and I are assuming that this was about a difference of philosophy on COVID restrictions, and that's what we've been hearing. What if there was a harassment complaint? What if there was something more, of a more personal wrongdoing nature that's being swept under the rug with this confidential? I mean, the problem with a lack of sunshine is you're going to hide. You don't know what they're hiding. It could be something even worse than just a policy disagreement.
And the other thing I would assume is they went for a confidentiality agreement. And again, I emphasize assume because I don't know. Like you point out, we really don't know. But they went for that type of an agreement because once the Supreme Court made its decision that the governor couldn't unilaterally give us COVID restrictions, she had to use the health department, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. She wouldn't want people to think that she was the one telling everybody what to do at Health and Human Services. Is that kind of what you're thinking, where the issue could be?
I mean, it's a little bit like what's happened with the 50-50 split in the Senate, where all of a sudden Joe Manchin is now king, right? Mm-hmm. When the Supreme Court ruled that, yes, her executive orders couldn't continue, that made Robert Gordon
king,
governor for however long the pandemic lasts. It made him a surrogate governor.
Right.
Because it passed the executive order authority off to him. And the question becomes, now, is he acting independently? Could he defy the governor in what he thinks now is the best interest of the state? Or is he the governor's puppet and doing her bidding?
And that's where the trouble could have come in, because they weren't on the same page with how to loosen the restrictions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because at first I thought to myself, well, why can't they just say exactly what happened? But the more you think about it, you think, okay, they probably don't want the public to know what was really going on behind the scenes. Why no transparency here? And my problem is every time there is this type of an agreement, legal or not, it creates a tremendous amount of speculation. The other interesting perspective would be from a public relations expert, because they probably would say what we're saying. Oh boy, we're opening ourselves up to a lot of speculation here.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting story. And Maria's on the phone. It's never a good sign when we're on the phone.
This is my mic. 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 3.
Okay. All right, it's working again. Thanks, Marie.
Okay, bye.
You sound great, Riri.
Finally, huh?
We're missing the kitty cat, though.
Oh, he's here.
Okay.
The other one's here this morning. So, and he's angry that I'm not letting him out. So.
Oh, okay. Is there a dog too?
Yes, there's also a dog. I live in a zoo, Anne.
You live in a zoo, yeah.
Yeah, I live in a zoo.
The dog.
No. The dog does not leave John's side though. So she's asleep in our bedroom on the floor. She does not leave his side. It's a joke. John says he gets more respect out of the dog than he ever did out of any of us.
Back from 30 here.
I'll let you two chat.
All right, sounds good.
During your afternoon snack. Hey Google, play the Marketplace Minute. Upward swings in indices in Europe and Asia.
So, Marie, let's talk about this confidentiality agreement.
Briefing updated 3 times daily. Ask your smart speaker to play the Marketplace Minute. Listen on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, we have been intrigued since January 22nd about why the state's health director, who really, it to some degree, became a surrogate governor once Gretchen Whitmer no longer could issue executive orders regarding the pandemic. He became the pandemic order czar, effectively. And we didn't know why he resigned so abruptly. Now it turns out that he was paid $155,000 in a separation deal and also signed a confidentiality agreement. And it raises so many questions, Marie, about whether this was a firing that was publicly explained as something else, whether this was about policy differences. We will never know because of this confidentiality agreement.
And then what I find interesting about this particular situation is that, throughout this pandemic, we've been told over and over that there are extraordinary measures being taken because we're in a pandemic, right? We've never in a global pandemic. There are things that are happening that are just extraordinary. Well, here this firing takes place, and all of a sudden there's a confidentiality agreement, and we don't know why. I'm a little concerned about why that all happened and the questions that surround it. Because again, as you said, was it policy difference? Was it something else? What was it?
So the timing has always been curious because he left the day that there was an announcement that they were lifting the ban on indoor dining. It was, a lifting to 25% after being a total ban. And it just led to speculation that he and the governor were not on the same page, that he was more of a lockdown enthusiast than she was, perhaps. And what's interesting, so Craig Mauger from the Detroit News, a great piece today from Craig, and frames what this is. And the language in it is interesting. This is a quote from the agreement. In response to any inquiries from prospective employers, employer, that would be the state of Michigan, will state that employee voluntarily resigned. Well, that seems to indicate that it wasn't voluntary at all, that he was booted to the curb, but they were going to put a happy face on it.
That's exactly what that sounds like. I mean, in business, we've seen these sorts of things before, right? And certainly in the big corporations that are in our community. And when we see that, we know that that's kind of code for what that's saying. That this was not an agreement to leave his employment. And so you really have to wonder why.
Dennis Muchmore was chief of staff within the Snyder administration and said, in their 8 years, they never had one of these separation confidentiality agreements. He said if you had somebody that was happening this to, you didn't give them a payoff. And by the way, we should point out the Republican leaders are calling this hush money. These kind of separation agreements where you are trying to avoid a unlawful termination or unjust termination claim. I mean, they were trying to avoid a civil suit here. They're putting a more nefarious face on it and saying this is hush money. They may be right. I don't know. But it certainly indicates that we've got a transparency problem here in the state of Michigan. We are one of only 2 states that doesn't have the Freedom of Information Act extend to members of the executive branch and members of the legislative branch. And coincidentally, Progress Michigan sent out a press release yesterday saying they are now starting ballot petitions that will call for an extension and expansion of FOIA in the state of Michigan to the norm that we see in other states. where legislators and the governor will be subject to the Freedom of Information Act. And this is one of those unique things, Marie, where I can see those on the far right and far left coming together, and maybe those in the moderate middle joining in and saying, yeah, it's high time we need this. We know Jim Runstead, Senator, good Republican from White Lake, he's on board saying we need to do this. Right. Unfortunately, every time it's legislatively it's been done, they've tried to shut out the sunshine. This might be the tripwire, the tipping point that gets it done.
Also, on this case here that we started to discuss is that when the director here for the health department left, he announced it on Twitter, which was, again, also an unusual way to announce a departure of this magnitude, right? I mean, wouldn't this have been announced by the governor's office saying, we appreciate all the help he's given us? You know, the muckety muck we usually get in these releases, but that's not how it happened. We get a tweet from this person saying that Gordon is leaving office. I'm leaving now.
Well, and you and I are used to asking questions of corporations and businesses about why someone was terminated, and they can rightfully say it's a privacy issue, it's a personnel issue, we cannot comment. When there's tax dollars involved, and it's someone in the executive branch, also someone as high-ranking as an appointed official, a director of one of the most highly funded departments in the state of Michigan, that's during a pandemic, right, who has even increased powers than they normally would have. That is a very, very difficult standard to defend. Back with more on the Paul W. Smith Show to get your Tuesday started. When we come back, people with gum disease 9 times more likely to die from COVID. What is that about? We'll tell you what you need to know to protect yourself and your family next on the Paul W. Smith Show, right after we check in with Dana Clark. WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Exergen. Accuracy matters. Receive a $5 rebate by trading up any non-contact thermometer toward an Exergen purchased at any retailer. Accuracy matters. Don't take a chance with non-contact thermometers. Exergen's accuracy is supported by peer-reviewed published studies. Details at exergen.com.
696 eastbound between Greenfield and Coolidge, that has reopened. The crews were removing icicles along that stretch. Once again, 696 eastbound between Greenfield and Coolidge now open. Accidents along 94 westbound at Verner is now clear, seeing delays from at least 9 Mile. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by the Mechanical Contractors Association of Detroit. When your commercial, industrial, public, or residential project calls for plumbers, pipe fitters, or HVAC service technicians, the Mechanical Contractors Association of Detroit connects you with the very best highly skilled and trained union contractors. To get started on your next project, visit mcadetroit.org.
In pretty good shape now. Skies clear. Much colder air is now spilled on in this morning. A west-northwest breeze. Plenty of blue sky this afternoon. Seasonable 42. Up a few degrees tonight. 31. A little colder in the suburbs. Wednesday, clouds, sunshine, quickly back up near 50. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Staging on News Talk 760 WJR.
Hey, UFC 259 is this weekend in DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports.
You need anything, Guy? You doing okay?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, great.
Do I sound like I need something?
Well, you're good. I just like to check.
Yeah, no, just fine. I do need to look over this stuff it is Zanetti, correct?
Yep, Jeff Zanetti. Yes.
And he has been your dentist how long?
Oh, forever. I don't even know. Like, since the kids were little. I'd say for more than 20 years. He's an excellent dentist. He does a great job. He's also a golfer, and he listens to WJR all day long.
Good man. We
Yes,
need to
good man.
clone him.
Yes, we do. Yes, he's absolutely wonderful. He just does an excellent job. If you have he's one of those guys, if you have a problem, he stops what he's doing middle of the night.
Yeah.
He'll do anything to make you comfortable. Because when your tooth hurts, your tooth hurts.
My brother-in-law was our dentist.
Oh.
And so it was great. We could always get in. He was just so kind to us. And one of the funniest things is Graham, he wasn't ADHD, but you would have thought he was because he was just constantly in a fog.
Mm-hmm, sure.
The kid kept losing his retainer.
Oh.
Dave went into his shop, because he made dental appliances,
Uh-huh.
went into his shop and made 10 retainers for Graham, which would have cost a freaking fortune.
Oh my gosh.
If we had it done, and he gave them to Graham for Christmas because Graham kept losing his retainers.
That's a great story. I love it.
I don't know. It's kind of like getting someone a vacuum for Christmas, though. You might need it, but you don't really want it.
I will tell you that Graham Gordon was the most appreciative kid in the world because it meant that his mother was no longer going to be
on him.
threatening abuse.
Yeah.
I never went to my last orthodontist retainer appointment back in 1998. So that's why I got a little gap.
Did you call
It
Jeff?
gives you character, Mike.
Yeah. He's there, and our out will be like 56.50. We got 2 left. That's like my David Letterman.
I can't believe you didn't go to the last appointment, though.
Well, see, I was bad. I would never wear it until like 3 nights before my appointment. So, I'd be going in there. My mouth is just in pain because, I tried to get a month of shifting in 3 days.
Let's not talk about your shifting on air, shall we? That could be an elocution.
Yeah, well,
danger.
That's just for the too hot for radio, Facebook, and YouTube broadcast here.
Mark had a great point on Facebook saying that maybe Dr. Gordon knew too much about what was happening in the nursing homes.
That's the problem with this.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. You get into the speculative stuff and honestly, when you look at and to those listening on Facebook, Craig Mauger has these emails, and it does sound like it was a dispute over the restaurant edict, because at one point there was a question about whether Director Gordon was going to be at the news conference announcing the relaxing of the limits. And when they said you don't need to be there, he says, "Good, that's a relief." In other words, he didn't want to have to justify a policy that he didn't agree to. Is the impression you get from the emails.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Welcome back in. We have been forever shocked and surprised at the various different ways that COVID-19 can affect us, afflict us, the consequences of it, both short and long haul. And there's so many. I mean, it is just so surprising the different way this disease can affect us. Now comes this interesting factoid that you are 9 times more likely to die from COVID if you have gum disease. So what's the connection there? We turn to Dr. Jeff Zanetti, who is a dentist in Farmington and also a listener to the Paul W. Smith Show. Dr. Zanetti, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Guy. How are you today?
I'm excellent. And if you're the man responsible for the smiles of Ann Thomas and her family, you do good work.
They're a wonderful family. I'm glad to have.
So help me with this. What is the connection between gum disease and COVID? Is it a cause and effect, or is it a warning sign?
It's more of a warning sign. It has to do with inflammation. And Joel Kahn, a cardiologist who's on Paul's show all the time, talks about inflammation in heart disease. Same inflammation occurs with periodontal disease. And we're not talking gingivitis and a little bit of bleeding. We're talking about moderate to severe periodontal disease. It irritates your body to fight this inflammation. And our bodies can only take so much inflammation at a time. So if you have moderate to severe periodontal disease, you get afflicted with the COVID-19 virus, your body's going to be overrun. It's going to be taken over, and that's why the study out of a European periodontal journal said that you're 9 times more likely to die if you have advanced gum disease.
And it's not just elevating the mortality rate, it's also exacerbating the symptoms and perhaps the long-term consequences as well. Take us through what else that study found.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 3.5 times more likely to be admitted to an intensive care unit, and you're 4.5 times more likely to be on a ventilator. And early on with COVID, if you were on a ventilator, things have changed over time. But early on, 10 months ago, you were about 25% chance of dying if you get on a ventilator.
When you look at this, I guess it raises the question, how do I know if I have periodontal disease? Is it bleeding of the gums? Is it gum pain? And you said it's more of the moderate to severe. So am I likely to know that I have this, or is this kind of that ticking time bomb that I might not know about?
Yeah, it's generally more of a ticking time bomb. There's a lot of patients, a lot of individuals walking around today with this affliction and not really knowing they have it. You go to your dentist and if they're not poking you between your gums and your teeth, you need to find a new dentist. That's the only way we know of how to diagnose periodontal disease, is we're literally measuring between your gums and your teeth. Your gums form a shirt collar, and you don't want that shirt collar to be any deeper than 3 to 4 millimeters.
It's a really good point. How many people are at greater risk of this because they may not have visited the dentist in the past year?
I would say it's a slippery slope, and if it's been 12 to 18 months since you've been to the dentist and you were borderline periodontal disease back then, you have a much greater chance of having these problems.
All right. So how do I, give me just some simple steps that if I was to engage in some self-diagnosis here, what do I need to watch out for?
Self-diagnosis, we always go back to bleeding gums, but that's not the only diagnosis. I would say tender teeth when you're biting, loose teeth, all those things. The greatest way to prevent periodontal disease is just to get the plaque off your teeth. And my great story for that is the day my dad found out I got into dental school, he quit smoking, and he picked up toothpicks to clean his teeth. My father had the healthiest gums in the world, and it was because he ran a toothpick around every single tooth in his mouth the rest of his life.
That is so interesting. So if we do have this inflammation and this periodontal disease, how quickly can we reverse it? And I mean, can it be to some degree almost instantaneous that you can reduce the inflammation just by getting rid of the plaque?
Not necessarily for moderate to severe. Moderate to severe, you're going to need dental help, whether it's a general dentist like myself or a gum specialist, a periodontist. If you're in the moderate to severe range, it's going to take some time to get rid of the inflammation.
So help me with just how business is. We know that to a large degree that medical professionals of all stripes were shut down early on in the pandemic, and then I think it was sometime around June or July that we saw dental offices reopen. To what degree are people coming back, and what percentage of your clientele are still staying away because they're concerned about being in close contact?
Yeah, we were down for about 2.5 months. Friday, May 29th was our first day back last year. And we have been full speed ahead since that day. We almost still can't catch up with our patients wanting to come in. My patients have noticed all the changes that we've done in the office, everything for patient safety. And we've been extremely busy, and I feel my staff is safe and my patients are extremely safe.
Have you had any incidents at all, or are you aware of any colleagues that have had a problem?
I have heard of some colleagues that had problems. I'll be honest with you. It's young employees that are going out to the bars and that are not taking COVID seriously. It's not all the things that we do in the dental office to prevent anything. And this goes before COVID. I mean, dentists were one of the first healthcare professionals to embrace personal protective equipment. And we've, doubled down, tripled down on what we do in the office. And it's just amazing. Patients feel comfortable here. Elderly patients that have some sort of problems, we have them first thing in the morning. So there's no aerosols in the air. They're the first patients in the morning. Other times we'll have people right after lunch where we can cold fog the office and try to get rid of as much aerosol as we can.
All right. So to recap, brush, floss, get to your dentist for a regular visit to make sure you don't have periodontal disease, because if you do, 9 times more likely to die, 4.5 times more likely to need a ventilator, 3.5 times more likely to be admitted to the ICU. Dr. Zanetti, we thank you so much for your time and your talent today.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Have a good day, guys.
You too. And thanks for being a listener. We love that. because you're piping it into all those. You got a captive audience there when you got your mouth open and you're in the chair. We love that. Take care, sir.
Thanks, Guy.
Let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic first. Back with Marie's headlines right after that.
Well, now we see 696 westbound is blocked between Coolidge and Greenfield. All lanes temporarily blocked for icicle removal. Traffic is backed up from at least Woodward. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Primetime Testing Laboratory. In need of autonomous or electric vehicle testing, Primetime Testing is the industry's best and complete automotive testing services. From component level to full vehicle for your next automotive project, get a free quote at primetimetestinglab.com. That's primetimetestinglab.com. Very cold start out there. Clear skies, 15 degrees, sunshine all day today. A little bit warmer. We are inching up each day, a high of 40. Tonight, clear skies, your low 32. Partly cloudy to mostly cloudy on hump day, a high of 52. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in about 3 minutes.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time.
So here's a question. I'm noticing some people, Patrick says Dr. Colander also tied gum issues to heart disease. Yep, I've heard that.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Zanetti, well, he referenced it with Joel Kahn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But have you gone to the dentist?
What's that?
Have you gone to the dentist?
Yeah.
You have? I have not.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised you didn't say it because I haven't gone.
Oh, really? I even though we were taking care of Lucy, I went before Lucy was born.
Okay.
Because I knew that we were going to be having her over a lot. This is my granddaughter, for those that haven't heard about her. And I just, I wanted to make sure that I got it done, and then I was able to quarantine for 2 weeks before, there would be any, because I wanted to see her.
Yes, I know.
So
did they let you see her right away?
Yep. But we were all masked up. We were all masked up.
And did you quarantine for 2 weeks before she was born?
I didn't for those 2 weeks. The only thing that I left the house to do was to play golf outdoors.
Outdoors, okay.
I mean, I did not go indoors. I think I went to Lowe's a couple times, but other than that, nah. We were just hyper vigilant about it because, good God, if for any reason,
I know,
Greer or the baby contracted COVID, you certainly wouldn't, you would just kill yourself if you were the one. Even if it was a mild case, you still would just say, we don't know what the long-term effects are.
Exactly.
And
how old is Lucy now?
Lucy is 7 months old, and we're trying to get her to crawl. She has absolutely no interest in crawling. Gail is giving her all kinds of tummy time to try to get her inspired.
Do it?
Put her on her tummy and put her, because kids now, because you don't put them on their tummies in bed, they don't do tummy time naturally, and so they crawl later because they're never on their tummies because of all the SIDS prevention.
I didn't even think of that, but it's true.
Yeah, so. Wow. They would do a lot of their tummy time on their own in their crib and also learn to crawl and learn to,
So now she's getting a little practice. You know what? One of mine, my son, he was like that. He had no interest in moving. I don't think he walked until he was well over a year. He didn't care.
No, and apparently Gail was the same way as a child. Like if they said you could put a toy in front of her and she'd just sit there and look at it. She just...
Yeah.
And now she's one of the most ambitious people I know. Who knew?
Yeah, right. Things change. So yeah, and they sometimes the later crawlers. It might be an old wives' tale, but there is something about the later crawlers. I think they do fairly well in school, believe it or not. There's some kind of funny old wives' tale with that. I'll have to look it up.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, Patrick says, Lucy says, I'm good right here.
Yeah, and she is. She's a happy little girl. She's got this little plate, Play School Farm where, you
Oh,
push
yes.
a button and the cow goes moo and you press it? Well, the animals are removable. The first thing she does when she comes over is she wants that chicken out of the chicken coop and she wants the corn out of the bin. Other than that, she's fine. You put them back, she goes and she takes them out. We have no idea what's up with that.
Is she going to be a farmer?
I don't know, but I mean, she certainly isn't going to do a very good job keeping track of the chickens if she keeps taking the chicken out of the coop.
Wow. Or she could raise chickens. You know how people do that nowadays.
I think she's
An
going to be
organic chicken.
she's going to be a free-range chicken herself, I think.
So Jeff Sloan coming up next. Michael, tell us if we're in good shape.
Yes,
with
Mark
on
checked
accent.
in with me, and I just got him all hooked up here, so he's good to go.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have the tape ready for 7:18, right, Mike?
Yes, I do. Hey, Guy.
Yes,
when,
sir.
When a tape's on, do you want me to keep you in the frame here, or do you want me to take you out? It's up to you. I just kind of throw a picture up just so it's not that awkward, but
No, go ahead and throw up the picture of the guest, whoever it is, and take me out. I usually run for coffee or
right. I was just kind of staring at you,
or jump on
like a
Facebook to
ventriloquist.
chat with our Facebook peeps.
Right. Okay, I will do that. Let's see. That's two guests. They're from what? They're from Stanford. I'll find a nice picture of Stanford to throw up during them.
Thank you, Mike. That's great.
We're not going to do it today, but here's a question for our Facebook peeps. Do you believe would you say you're living the American dream?
Oh, this is a good one. We forgot this one.
I didn't forget it. We ran out of time.
No.
And the Gordon thing popped in, Director Gordon. Or do you think you are on the path to living the American dream, and what will get you off the path and actually living it? Just curious. There's a study about this, and there are some traits that determine who says they are really living the American dream. And I'm curious as to...
And does anybody say they're living the American dream during COVID? Well, how does
Yeah.
COVID play into the American dream?
Yeah, I mean, if you're still employed, that gets back to that thing that Sandy talked about yesterday with their State of the Region study. I mean, to me, the one nugget in there that was so important was that 25% said that this has been catastrophic or a major impact on their finances. 75% said no big deal. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if that's because we had that huge tranche of unemployment benefits, that extra $600 a week that, kept people on track. If you look at the personal income figures for the counties that came out yesterday, and I think it was either the Freep or the News listed every one by county,
Mm-hmm.
they're all doing pretty well. And this notion with this COVID relief bill right now, and they're saying, well, we've got to get these billions of dollars to state and local governments. I got a thing out of the New York Times today that shows Michigan, our state revenues were up. California state revenues were up. A lot of the blue states that Republicans say are benefiting from this,
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of held harmless. Their revenues were up. And then there were some red states like Nevada, because they were so tourism related, they've gotten killed. I think they saw a 10% decline. Hawaii saw a 40, or might have been Alaska, but the two of them, a 40% decline in state revenues. If people aren't traveling to the state, they're not buying stuff, you don't get sales tax revenue. It's been horrible for them. But for the most part,
we are okay.
They did okay.
But if you think about Michigan, a lot of our tourism is outdoors.
Right.
We're an outdoor. So during the winter, people, Barry Owens was saying from treetops, they have had big crowds.
Right.
So people are loved the snow and the outdoor activities. And then in the summertime, they loved the golf because it was outside.
The weekend that we were going to Boyne, we got in just under the wire because it was a sellout at Boyne Mountain, Boyne
Really?
Highlands. Oh, yeah. Now, they have reduced capacity because they're trying not to throw everybody together on the same lift. We were traveling as three in a family. I was with my son and his wife. So we could get on the quad chair or the triple chair together. So things still moved pretty well.
Sure.
But
It was busy.
We saw a lot of singles going up, and nobody
Thanks
carped about
for
it.
your support.
You know.
Yeah, be patient.
The Paul W. Smith Show, News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host Guy Gordon.
I don't know if you harbor this dream, but I know a lot of people do, that you could become the next Bill Gates or the Steve Jobs. You come up with that idea, or the Zuckerberg. You come up with that idea that is the next big thing, and it turns you into, if not a billionaire, it gives you comfort in the future financial life that you want. The problem is that if you look at Jobs, Zuckerberg, and Gates, they all did their big idea when they were in their 20s. And it leaves the impression that to be a successful entrepreneur, that you need to be young. And that is not necessarily the case. We turn to Jeff Sloan from WJR's Business Beat, the founder and CEO of Startup Nation. I mean, this is in his wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And Jeff, this is such an interesting study that was published in the Harvard Business Review, because it's kind of a myth buster.
Good morning, Guy. Yes, indeed. Well, listen, don't give up on your entrepreneurial dreams. Actually, other studies have found that entrepreneurs in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are the most successful. The average age of a startup entrepreneur meeting with the most success is actually around 45.
And that's even true if you factor in the technology sector, which is perceived to be a young person's business.
Yeah, indeed. I think, I'll give the edge to the younger set, the younger demographic, when it comes to coming up with that big idea, that revolutionary idea, especially in the tech sector, software sector, social media companies, et cetera. Those young people grow up with a platform understanding, a basic fundamental understanding of technology that allows them to leapfrog the older set. Us older guys, if you will, are seasoned more with guys with more wisdom, if you will, but also guys that are, used to a different way of conducting their lives. And these young people grow up on the next big thing, and then they're able to take that to the next step.
I found it really interesting, Jeff, because I think when you get into your 40s, you've got a mortgage, you've got kids, you've got a house, you have more at risk if you fail. At least that's the perception. And yet, you're right, in the 45 to 55 age bracket is where we find the highest degree of success.
Yeah, I think it really depends, Guy, on what type of business we're talking about. Again, give the edge to the younger guys for these big, big ideas in software and so on. But I think the average business, when you look at Main Street businesses, even biotech, for example, other technology businesses, seasoned entrepreneurs tend to do better because they build a base of knowledge over time that's critical for some of these businesses, but they also build leadership skills. They know how to manage their time. They build leadership skills. They're more practical about their business. And in fact, a recent study by the Census Bureau and 2 MIT professors found that companies employing people, if you judge success by how many employees they have, again, 40s, 50s, even 60s do much better than the younger set. So I think it really depends on what type of business sector we're talking about here.
Well, and we should point out, too, that entrepreneurship isn't necessarily just the big idea. I mean,
exactly.
It can be starting a restaurant or starting that maybe turns into a franchise thing, kind of the Mike Ilitch model. It may start out as a small business that you can replicate several times. It's not necessarily the game changer.
Guy, that is it. You nailed it. I love the Mike Ilitch example. That's exactly right. We tend to get polluted because the media sensationalizes, and obviously for good reason. It's amazing when someone in their 20s creates a multi-billion-dollar company. It's a sensation. And so, we tend to look at those very rare marginal examples as what entrepreneurship is all about. But the fact of the matter is, you said it, making pizza, providing mortgages, the things that we know, growing an automobile business or a supplier business to the automotive industry. These are things we know well, these kind of nuts and bolts, blue collar entrepreneurship here in the Midwest. These are the mainstay. This is the mainstay of America's economy. And so these sensational ideas get a lot of press, but you're absolutely right, Guy. Entrepreneurship is about a lot more than that.
So does that media bias extend to the venture capital community, the people that hold the purse strings that can make the difference between an idea foundering and dying from lack of oxygen? Do they have the same age bias? Do they have the same perception problem and think that only the young folks have the chops to bring a big idea home?
Yeah, it's not necessarily that they think the young people can execute better. Excuse me. The average age, actually, of a VC-backed company, I believe, is around 32. So it does skew younger, no question about it. But here's why. This is a unique part of the business sector, again, actually a very small part of what makes up of all of the startup community. The reason VCs back these young people is what we talked about earlier. They tend to have these big ideas. They're growing up with a different mindset about how they're going to be living their lives, and they tend to be the early adopters of these big technology ideas. And so VCs tend to back younger entrepreneurs because they have these bigger ideas. And these are investors who have institutional money invested in their fund. They have to invest it in these companies wisely, and they have to generate a return. So they're looking for a quick turn. And these young companies with these big ideas tend to be the fast growth companies. And that's why they that's why they become the media sensation. They make the big news, but they're a very small part of what makes up the entire entrepreneurial community.
It is really a fascinating study, and I guess as a guy that's got a few years on him, it's encouraging because one of the graphs they have in here, Jeff, says the probability of extreme startup success rises with age, and it rises until the late 50s. It's not until about the age 62 or 63 that we see the chances of success decline. So I mean, it's even if we talk about the kind of the classic case where the person is 45 or a little bit older, this can extend well into your late 50s too. So I guess the takeaway here is don't be discouraged and don't think that this can't be you.
Absolutely, Guy. You've nailed it. A 50-year-old startup founder is actually 2.8 times more likely to found a successful startup than is a 25-year-old founder. So there is hope for us, Guy. Keep those ideas coming, and if you've got a good one, go after it.
And then call Jeff Sloan at Startup Nation, and he'll help you bring it home. Jeff, thanks so much. Always a pleasure to talk with us. And remember that you can find WJR's Business Beat always in the mornings on the Paul W. Smith Show with Jeff Sloan. Take care. And you can read about this in the Harvard Business Review as well. Let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
696 westbound between Coolidge and Greenfield that has reopened. Icicle removal crew is all clear. All lanes are open. Accident reported in Clinton Township, M59 eastbound right before Gratiot. Traffic is slow from Groesbeck Highway. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Primetime Testing Laboratory. For over 20 years, they have been offering complete automotive testing services, guaranteeing on-time delivery and accurate result reporting to OEMs, Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers. For your next automotive project, get a free quote at primetimetestinglab.com. That's primetimetestinglab.com.
I promised you colder air, and it's here this morning. West-northwest breeze adding an extra bite to the air. Mostly sunny, though. Mostly sunny this afternoon. Breezy 42. Tonight, clear, milder 31 in town. Suburbs colder. Tomorrow, mix of clouds and sunshine. Highs shooting into the low 50s. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Staging on News Talk 760 WJR.
Heard the good news about COVID-19 vaccines? They're here. But you can do more than wait for your turn. See, you have the power to help slow. Actually, you can be a real difference.
All right, so the same as last tape here, Guy. It'll end with the guest saying bye to you, then I'll hit the traffic sounder, and that's when you'll know it's time for you to jump in and throw to Dana.
Okay, good enough.
All right.
When you talk to Dan Howes, can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, I'm back.
When you talk to Dan Howes, we're going to pick him up at 7:30. Tell him I also want to ask him about Craig Mauger's piece in his paper about this confidentiality agreement with Director Gordon.
Craig Mauger, piece, confidentiality, Robert Gordon. Okay.
Right. Appreciate it, sir.
Sure, you got it. All right, about 2 minutes away.
professionals to help them keep their homes in top condition. Be sure to listen every Saturday and Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to noon, right here on WJR.
The Inside Outside guys are brought to you in part by EJH Construction.
This is Guy Gordon. Michigan weather can damage our homes and our businesses, leaving us feeling overwhelmed. Help begins with one simple call to EJH Construction. EJH will contact your insurance company for you and work with them through the entire process, making sure your repairs are done with the highest quality materials and that your property is restored to its pre-loss condition. We here at WJR have trusted them to help us, and so can you. 50 years strong, EJH Construction. They are the only choice. Call 800-854-4534 or go to ejhconstruction.com.
Businesses that run like clockwork establish routines they trust. That's why over 1 million companies rely on Cintas. We'll help you protect employees and customers with essential safety supplies, inspect your fire protection systems and devices, hygienically launder your uniforms, and keep you well-stocked with the leading hand sanitizers and disinfecting wipes. Learn how Cintas can help you open your doors with confidence.
Oh, I'm ready.
Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
Heard the good news about COVID-19 vaccines? They're here, but you can do more than wait for your turn. Here's how. Stay at least 6 feet away from folks you don't live with. And it's risky to be indoors with them too. And masks? Well, they protect both the person wearing them and the folks around them. Wear a mask, watch your distance, and make a big difference now.
Learn more about vaccines at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
In Michigan, we may see 90% of schools offering some kind of in-person learning by mid-month, slowly getting back to normal. But by then, much of the damage may already have been done. Research out of Stanford University, very eye-opening, and it shows that the learning loss from COVID-19 can not only be quantified, you can actually put a dollar amount on it. How much potential lifetime earnings will be lost because of this lost time in the classroom? We're joined by Professor Eric Hanishek and Professor Margaret Raymond, who authored those studies. Professors, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having us.
Professor Raymond, we haven't had any kind of formal or standardized testing here in the state of Michigan yet. So how are you measuring learning loss over the past year?
So my team at Stanford University has had a partnership with the Department of Education in Michigan for many, many years. And they allow us to take a look at what happens to students from year to year. We were able to use the historical experience of students to project what they would have learned over last school year had COVID not happened, and then make adjustments for the loss of classroom time and the erosion of learning due to the pandemic. So we have projected learning for students in Michigan in both reading and math, and show that they have substantial less learning over that time than they would have had in regular classrooms.
And I want to quantify that in a moment, and hopefully in a way that we can all understand it. But Professor Hanishek, when you start to calculate earning losses, there's kind of a presumption that we can't recover from this. Why is that? Why can't we summer school our way out of it? Or is there some skepticism that we can actually fill this void?
Well, I think right now everybody is trying to just get back to what the world was like in 2019. And that's the main goal. And if we just get back to where our schools were in the past, we're going to find that this is a permanent loss to our kids, because they've lost this learning over this period of time, and they're going to be put back. Now, they might be able to make up for it by having more schooling, and summer school might make up for it if we could figure out how to do that. But that's really an attempt to make the schools better in order to recover from this. And if we don't make the schools better in some way, the kids that we see today in this cohort are going to be permanently harmed.
And when you say cohort, I mean, we're really talking about a generation of students that are K through 12 right now who will have gaps. And Professor Raymond, as you quantified this, especially here in Michigan, how much have our kids lost? And same question for you, what would it take to make it up?
So first, let me give you the numbers that we came up with from our estimations. In reading, we found that the average student in Michigan lost about 2/3 of a year of their reading learning, and in math, they lost almost the full year. I want to stress, though, that those averages have a lot of variation around them, and of particular concern for you sitting in Detroit. It turns out that in large urban areas, in areas where schools enroll large percentages of students that are educationally disadvantaged in one way or another, those impacts are even larger. And so we have to think not just about getting kids back into school, but we have to think very dramatically and seriously about how we're going to take kids where they show up, because they're going to be all over the map, and move them forward. And so the kinds of educational innovation that we need, that Professor Hanishek is talking about, is really a pressing crisis right this very minute.
And how did we do relative to other states?
Oh, well, you are not the worst and not the best. I would say you are pretty close to the midpoint of states in the loss of reading that you have. But I'd have to say that you're slightly worse than average in the math losses that you incurred.
Yeah, but just by looking at the numbers that were in your study, it looked to me like we were number 6 out of 18 that you studied, including the District of Columbia, which is still not a good thing by any means. Professor Hanishek, as you look at this through the economic lens, if we don't recover what the kids have lost in terms of learning, how much will that impact their lifetime earnings over their working life?
Well, if we got back to 2019 schools today or soon, as you noted, Michigan is moving toward trying to get in-class instruction going within the next month. We're talking about, on average, 6 to 9% of lifetime earnings for this current cohort. And as Professor Raymond pointed out, there's highly variable responses, and basically we're pretty certain that disadvantaged kids, defined in income and other ways, are going to do much worse than the average kid. So some parents can help their kids and they haven't lost so much, but other parents aren't helping their kids, aren't making sure that they're there and the kids aren't engaged. And they're going to lose more than 6 to 9% of their lifetime earnings. This is a real number. This is a big number.
You said 6 to 9% or 69%?
6 to 9, somewhere in that range, for on average. 69% is that they're going home for life.
Right. Yeah. Most of that. That was like a shock to the heart there for a moment. Well, let me ask you, but it's still 6 to 9% of your income over your lifetime is a considerable amount and can make the difference between you being in the middle class and not. And by the way, we speak to a universe of counties with this radio station. We have a very, very big signal. So we cover a lot of rural areas. Are you finding the same kind of disadvantages in rural areas that you're finding in urban?
Mackie, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. We did find that that the location of the school had a negative impact the further away you got from suburban schools. So you could go either direction. Urban schools were worse than suburban, and rural schools were worse than suburban. The effects, I think, are largely driven by both the education preparation of the students and also by the caliber of teachers in the classroom. And this is by no means a critique of teachers during this time, because everybody knows they have just been knocking themselves out. But this has just been a horrific impact on the model that we have had in the past about schooling. And we have to rethink it, because it's not going to work for the kids moving forward.
So very quickly, before we have to let you go, what's the solution? What's the message that you hope to send with this research, and can we solve it?
So my message is simple, that you have to make the schools better. And we have some information on how to do that, but this has got to be a focus on individual student learning one way or another.
All right.
I will follow that up by saying it's very important for us to think about using teachers differently, because we are going to have to adapt teaching to the specific needs of kids, and that's a very different model than we have today.
Thank you so much to both of you. It is an eye-opener, and it brings into focus the fact that it's not just learning loss, it's income loss, and income loss over a lifetime. We appreciate the research from both of you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Coming up, we will talk with Daniel House from the Detroit News about the guilty plea yesterday from the company that used to be Fiat Chrysler, what that means for the UAW, what that means for the company, and rank and file workers. We'll get to that next on the Paul W. Smith Show, right after we check in with Marie and Dana Clark. WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies. When you talk to a Dell Technologies advisor, they're focused on you, ready to offer tailored solutions powered by Intel vPro platform to keep your small business ready for what's next. Call a Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL.
M59 eastbound right before Gratiot accident has you delayed from at least a Groesbeck Highway. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Sleep Solutions. Suffering with sleep apnea, you deserve a restful night's sleep. Sleep Solutions is your local easy solution. Don't wait to replace that old mask, tubing, and headgear. Call Sleep Solutions Home Medical at 877-SLEEP-MI or visit sleepsolutionsinc.com. We are expecting sunshine all day today, a high of 40. Tonight, clear skies, your low 32. A little bit warmer on Wednesday, hump day, partly to mostly cloudy, some peaks of sunshine here and there, a high of 52. Sunny start, cold though, 13 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 2 minutes.
I'm Matt Darko with Bill Brown Ford. With one of the largest inventories in the country, more people trust Bill Brown Ford because we don't just sell F-150s. Most of our team members drive one. Bill Brown Ford, proud to be your F-150 dealer.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to...
Did you see, I noticed you were answering Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see this new study coming out? It must have been done within the last, 24, 48 hours, or released, I should say. Epic MRA saying how many Republicans are not going to get the vaccine.
Well, what I did see was that the state of Michigan, and specifically the Detroit census region, so it would be Detroit, Warren, and surrounding suburbs, that we lead the nation along with Dallas in the number of people that are refusing to get the vaccine.
So this says almost half, this is according to this poll. Remember, it's just a poll.
Mm-hmm.
Almost half of Michigan Republicans do not plan to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's Epic MRA. It's 600 randomly selected Michigan voters done mid-February, 19th through the 25th.
I find that so odd because even the most rabid Trumpers are hearing from the former president, get the vaccine. This is one of our biggest success. He got the vaccine. Melania, we found out Melania got it. Even though I don't know that she's high risk. I certainly I don't begrudge her that. But yeah, I don't get that split unless just the intense distrust of government has gotten so big, or it's because it's now a Biden priority rather than a Trump priority.
It says here, the poll found that 70% of all of those surveyed plan to definitely or probably get a vaccine when it becomes available. 27% will not or probably will not. 3% are undecided. Now, you bring something up here. A larger percentage, 78% of those living in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb plan to get vaccinated. A smaller percentage, 65% of those living in the rest of the state expect to do so.
Yeah.
So
they've
that
just
kind of goes to what you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that it means that if everybody who wants it gets it, you're still just barely getting to herd immunity.
Exactly.
Except for the fact that doesn't call into account what I was talking with Paul about, which is we have no frigging clue how many of us are walking around with antibodies who had an asymptomatic case.
Right.
And I've seen estimates that say it could be as many as 10 times the number. I mean, if we've got 500,000 cases here in Michigan, that we could actually have 5 million people that have had it.
Correct. Because especially early on, we were out and about, and the virus was out and about.
And the other thing is we can only, the antibody test, there's a split there. There's antibodies and then there's T cell triggering, which is another way of looking at whether or not you have immunity. And we have a test for the antibodies. We don't have a test for whether or not your T cells have been triggered by COVID.
Oh, that's really interesting.
We got into that in an interview on my show, and I can't remember who it was with. It was really, really interesting because they think maybe as many as 50%. I mean, first of all, the diagnostic test for the antibodies is expensive, and we don't have a test for the other, a commercial marketable test. So we have no way of assessing, going back and saying, let's take this universe of people. How many have antibodies? Oh, my gosh. 10 times more than we thought. And so,
That's really interesting.
Oh, I know who it was. It was the guy that did, Dr. McCary, who is with Johns Hopkins. And he's been one of the Fauci critics, but he's not an anti-masker. He is not a denier. He is not any of these things. He's saying, get the vaccine, wear a mask, be smart. But he's saying, he published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that was really, really interesting, where it said we could be at herd immunity by April. Between the vaccines.
I saw this story.
It was fascinating.
Story.
And, but so much of what he admits, it's theoretical because we don't have a test for this T cell activity that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's really interesting. This MRA Epic MRA poll is also interesting. It also indicates that the governor's ratings are down.
Really? What did you see this in?
It's in the Free Press.
So they must have just posted this morning?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6:03.
What it looks like to me.
Daniel Howes is good, and he's good for you to ask him about the Craig Mager piece.
Okay, excellent.
So about a minute and a half away here.
All righty.
Popularity dips. Let's see, what is it? 52% giving her a positive job approval rating, 47% giving a negative rating, 49 say they had a favorable opinion, 44 unfavorable, 7% undecided or refused to say.
Did they tease out, because there used to be a difference, there was the job approval rating, and then they would tease out your approval of her COVID policies. And so her approval rating may have been somewhere around 56%, but her COVID number was upwards of 60%. In the other polls that I saw, and I think that was a Local 4 poll with Glenn Gariff. They gave her higher, even those that weren't, and it came down to even those that didn't necessarily vote for her gave her high marks for her COVID policies, but not so much anything else.
I'm looking. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, even though Candace Miller said that she's not going to run, the poll, they did a poll, and it says that it's a virtual dead heat.
Did Candace's husband pass away?
Yes.
Because I could understand her using that as as an explanation for why she wasn't interested. She had some serious stuff going on at home. He was very ill. But I'm kind of scared that not so much now.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
It is the beginning of an end to a huge, huge mess. Talking about some of the sweetheart deals that went on between automotive executives and members of the UAW. This kind of weird collusion with extravagant gifts, trips, payoffs, even paying down someone's mortgage, all that has left members of the rank and file feeling like they have been betrayed deeply. This all came to a head yesterday as an executive, or I should say the company, Stellantis, which is the old Fiat Chrysler, pled guilty in the court case. Daniel Howes, the fine reporter from the Detroit News, joining us. And Dan, there's just so much collateral damage in so many directions on this.
Yeah, starting with the credibility. This has been going on, as you say, for years. And yesterday's guilty plea by the former Fiat Chrysler, I think, was expected. There was no way that the feds were going to let them get through this case without admitting culpability in some way, shape, or form, and agreeing to pay $30 million. But I think this kind of proves what's been going on, happening all along, and been alleged all along, which is that the company was itself part of this. It wasn't just bad actors who worked for the company, like their former head of labor relations, who now sits in a federal prison. And as I've written many, many times over the years, I think this whole scandal confirmed what a lot of the rank and file thought, which is that the leadership, or at least some of the leadership, was interested in enriching themselves, not working to enrich the members, the dues-paying members.
Will we ever know, Dan, what the rank and file lost in this? What was given up for the goodies in terms of maybe wage or benefit increases, or maybe just more lenient, more beneficial work rules?
Probably not. I think you have a better idea of understanding, being able to quantify the amount of money that was spent on entertainment, and we can go through the whole long list. But you mentioned the paying off of the mortgage of a former UAW vice president who's now dead. Was clearly implicated in the case, General Holyfield, but was never charged. He was gone before that could happen. There's a lot of twists and turns about what may have happened here in the 2015 negotiations. Some of your listeners may remember that Fiat Chrysler was the so-called target, the lead company,
right?
And the membership rejected that initial contract, and they had to come around again to them at the end, and they got somewhat of a better deal, but. So I don't think we're ever going to really know. It'd be purely speculative in terms of what is it that was lost in terms of the bargaining.
Is there unequal justice here? I mean, we're seeing an awful lot of UAW leaders go to jail. Not one auto executive here, though Stellantis apparently is going to pay a $30 million fine. It does seem like it's a little unfair that only the people that receive the goodies go to jail, not the ones that try to corrupt the process by throwing them.
Well, I think you have to look at disaggregate this in a couple of ways. One, you said, I think, is that no auto executive's gone to jail. In fact, Al Iacobelli, who was the former head of labor relations, has the longest sentence by far, and I think is reported to be stewing about that fact. Compared to the sentencing, we still haven't had the sentencing of the former presidents, Gary Jones and Dennis Williams. In fact, the Dennis Williams sentencing was scheduled for today originally, but had been pushed back because of the pandemic, and the courts are moving at a snail's pace. So I think that's a few months out at this point. I suppose you could look at it that way, but the charges against Iacobelli were ultimately much larger and much bigger. The other thing that's important to note here is that it's very, very possible that had he lived, Sergio Marchionne might have been charged in all of that. And there is evidence that he gave Holyfield a very expensive Fiat branded watch that was worth, if I'm remembering right, thousands of dollars. I don't know if it was more than 10, but it was a very pricey watch. Clearly broke any ethics constraints on gifts between an executive and a labor leader. And when he was asked, and we've reported this in the news, when Marchionne was asked about this by lawyers for the feds, he denied it, and they then produced a handwritten note, and let them know that they had the watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it kind of had him dead to rights. And there are a couple players, protagonists in this whole long drama, who are no longer with us, conveniently.
Right. I want to get your take on a story that your colleague Craig Mauger wrote in today's edition of the Detroit News, and that is this confidentiality agreement for Director Robert Gordon, the top man at the health department. We've all been in the dark as to what led to his resignation, or even if it was a resignation, and the emails that Craig has dug up in this confidentiality agreement seem to suggest otherwise.
Yeah, they sure do. And I think we have the other thing. I've been thinking a lot about this in the context of potential column, but this is something. This is not a private corporation. This is not an automaker deciding to part ways with the CEO,
right?
And firing him and saying we're not going to talk about it. This is a public health director of the state of Michigan in the worst pandemic in 100 years. And this is a continuation of this administration not leveling with people, saying they're going to be transparent and then not being transparent. What led to his resignation or his firing? Why was he out? We know that happened coincident to the time he signed a new order to begin, I believe it is, restaurant dining, in-house dining.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a dispute between the governor and the top public health official about whether that order should go forward or not go forward? And what is the implications? I mean, we've been told that this administration uses data to make decisions and uses the science. And time again, people have said, show us the data. And the answer is no, effectively.
Right. And now I understand there could be a lawsuit coming, FOIA related, over the nursing home data. Whether or not there were some fudging of the figures is what we saw with Governor Cuomo. We've got Progress Michigan now going to be circulating petitions to try to get a FOIA law on the ballot. I think this is going to have a lot of moving parts to it, maybe a tipping point that we finally get the sunshine that you and I have been looking for, Dan, and it certainly is high time and overdue. Unfortunately, we're out of time, my friend. Thanks so much, and we'll look forward to that column on the idea of transparency.
Thank you.
All right, Daniel House from the Detroit News. When we come back, should bars be allowed to stay open to 4 a.m.? We'll speak with the lawmaker that's proposing exactly that next on the Paul W. Smith Show, right after we check in with Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Guys, still watching that accident in Clinton Township along M59 eastbound right before Gratiot. Those brake lights reportedly from Groesbeck Highway. Also stop and go traffic 75 southbound between 14 Mile and 11 Mile. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Amish Direct Furniture. Amish Direct Furniture carries a huge variety of high-quality handmade furniture made here in the USA. Stop by Amish Direct's new showroom in Sterling Heights. Meet their knowledgeable staff or shop online at AmishDirect.com. That's AmishDirect.com.
High pressure's back, sunshine back, cold start, much colder start than yesterday, and plenty of sun later. The north-northwest breeze will shift around to the southwest, 42. Tonight, clear, 31. Suburbs colder. Wednesday, a mix of clouds and sunshine, high near 51. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Stagik on News Talk 760 WJR.
For over 100 years, Apsopure has remained committed to serving communities.
So, Michael, if you're there, and I can see you're there,
environment, Apsopure is ready to serve you as they always have.
Would you come in with cut 6, please, and then I will ask for cut 7 within the interview with Representative
There are a variety of bottled waters for
Ottman. Oh, wait a minute. Ottman is... I totally teased that wrong. Crap. Okay. Never mind.
That's okay. It's on the internet. We'll just delete it.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, right.
Do I have to sign a confidentiality agreement for that, and will you pay me?
Yeah, and everyone watching us.
Or no, I have to pay you off.
Yeah. I mean, that's always a good idea.
We don't have SAE Ion Engineering, and we didn't do. Did we do Business Beat, or did I didn't read my disclaimer? Is that only for Mondays?
That's just Monday.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Business Beat was Jeff.
Okay.
So you don't have to do anything today. I think that's just a Monday thing.
Jeff is just so good.
He is good. He's great live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got great energy. He explains it well, keeps his answers short, so
He's positive. He makes you feel like you could really start a business.
Yeah.
Be like, oh.
All right, so I'm still waiting on Representative Altman. We still have 2.5 minutes left, so that's fine. 2 left, so 56-50, like
he might
last
be
hour.
closer. He might be closer to 48 or 49.
Okay.
He kind
Well,
of.
that'd be perfect because, like I said, I've got one of those long 2-minute spots after this, so I'll put us right there.
I totally balled up the tease. I said that this was about the bars. It's not. It's about the lottery thing.
That's all right. The bars are coming up in a half hour.
Yeah. No, the bars are open now, aren't they? Don't they open at 7?
Do they?
Don't ask me how I know that.
How do you know that?
Because when we used to go searching for auto workers, there was a bar down in southwest Detroit that was there with all the steel plants and those guys. There was a bar that opened up, and they also had awesome breakfasts. But you could get a shot of beer and an omelet. It was a great little spot. I mean, ugly hole in the wall. But if you were working the morning shift, you could go there and get early sound bites from someone if you were trying to knock out something early.
Wow. So if you were at the bar now in COVID, you can go into a bar. You just have a certain number of people, right? 25%?
Yeah, and I think, are they limiting it to 6 per table or something like that? I think that's what.
Altman is there.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I think I know that bar you're talking about. It's like the one single solitary business there in kind of the desert that is Delray and Southwest.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
What's the name? There's an Italian joint down there.
Oh, Giovanni's, yeah.
Giovanni's. I wonder if I once did a feature for Live in the D where we asked people to phone in and tell us where truly you can find Italian like your mama used to make.
It's there.
And Giovanni's and Vince's, which I think is on Schoolcraft, were the ones that, I mean, people from the far east suburbs, all of the Italians that moved out to Warren and other places, they all say they would still go into Detroit to go to Giovanni's and Vince's.
Right. What a location for like an upscale Italian restaurant, too.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. I have never been to Giovanni's, but I have heard amazing things about that place. I'm just looking to see.
The woman, what was funny was that in both cases, it was you're like, where do you find it where Mama used to make it? Mama was still in the kitchen.
Yes.
And I can't remember, there was, and I think both have probably died in the past 5 years because they were in their 80s then. But
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, I said we were going to talk about bars staying open until 4 a.m. I was incorrect. We're going to do that in our next hour. But we are going to focus on an interesting piece of legislation, and it's one that we all wish that we were affected by this. If you win a multi-state lottery, like Powerball or Mega Millions, where you get the enormous payout, should you be forced to share your identity with the world? Or because of the amount of money we're talking about, should you have anonymity? State Representative Pat Ottman is a Republican from Six Lakes. That's near Canadian Lakes up there in the central part of the state, just southwest of Mount Pleasant. And he joins us live this morning. Good morning, sir.
Hey, morning, guy. Thanks for having me on.
What was the inspiration for this?
Well, gosh, so this bill has been tried a couple times, and I always thought it was a good bill. It kind of stuck in my mind when we had those recent winners in Novi of that large lottery prize, so I thought I'd give this legislation another crack.
Yeah, we still haven't heard from them, which may indicate that they cherish their privacy and anonymity.
That's correct. Yep, still haven't heard from them. I believe they have up to a year to claim their prize, so we'll see what happens.
So what is behind this? Is it a security concern if they have children? Is it about, the fear of kidnappers, or is it just a generalized issue of privacy?
Well, a few different reasons. I think this bill is necessary, especially in the digital age that we live in now. Nowadays people can easily find you by Googling you or or searching for you via Facebook or some other social platform. And that really opens up the door to a lot of potential fraud and safety concerns. So when the lottery was first introduced in 1972, I believe we didn't have the internet. We didn't have ways to access people's information so easily. And now we do. So there's some real safety and privacy concerns. I mean, forcing people to reveal their names is like throwing meat into a shark-infested ocean. There are plenty of horror stories about lottery jackpot winners. The sudden wealth, sometimes to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, can create challenges for a winner. So, then those can be greatly exacerbated when their identity is known to the public. So some various reasons why I think it's necessary.
So the two major objections that I've heard, because we broached this topic on my show last week, I was just gobsmacked at the number of people that said, no, I want to see the actual payout to a real human being. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume that the government's pocketing the money. This huge mistrust in a government-run lottery.
Yeah, and I've heard those concerns before, but I look at other states that are doing this. I believe there's 8 states that allow you to remain anonymous should you win the lottery. And they don't have any issues with that. And I use South Carolina as an example. They're one of the states that allow you to remain anonymous in multi-state games. And they just had somebody collect a $1.5 billion Mega Millions prize anonymously. So I don't think that'll be as much of an issue as what people think it might be.
Well, and we should point out, this is very narrow in scope. What do we have? Maybe a half dozen, 10 at the most, maybe 20 multi-state winners in these games every year?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Not many at all.
And unfortunately, not many that come from Michigan. It would be a good problem to have. The other thing that I've heard, and I'm not sure that I agree with this either, is that the Lottery Commission itself loses a marketing opportunity. That money shot, literally the money shot of the average human becoming a multimillionaire overnight, holding that foam core check. That, you put that on a billboard and it sells lottery tickets, or at least that's the claim.
Right. And that's the main opposition to this bill. It's the Lottery Commission. They've been opposed to the previous introduction of this legislation because they think it'll impact their sales. Personally, I don't think that would be the case at all. Really, all it is the Lottery Commission trotting these poor people around and kind of marketing them when they win, pointing out to people, hey, this could be you if you play our games. So I honestly don't think it'll impact their sales at all. And we all know that people win the lottery. We don't need to know their identity and where they're from and things like that. So that's kind of been my argument moving forward.
In terms of why the legislation has failed in the past, is it usually because the Lottery Commission holds that kind of sway over some lawmakers in terms of, they'll say, well, the last thing we want to do is harm anything that has to do with the K through 12 budget, which could be a pretty compelling argument on both sides of the aisle.
Certainly. We definitely don't want to hold the school aid budget hostage when we're doing this. But I honestly don't know why there's been such opposition to this bill. To me, this is a common sense bipartisan issue. I'm fairly new down in Lansing. I just started my first term down here, so maybe there's more to the politics to this issue than I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got you here, and I don't want to blindside you with an issue that we didn't tell you we were going to ask you about, but the headline news down here in Detroit comes from the Detroit News. Craig Mauger did a story revealing that the Whitmer administration had a confidentiality agreement with former Health and Human Services Director Robert Gordon that prevents him from saying anything about why he is no longer with the state, prevents the state from discussing it. It sounds like they were trying to avoid a wrongful termination lawsuit, but they also paid him $155,000 in taxpayer money to unload him with what we thought was a voluntary resignation. What do you think about that, and what does that say about our need for sunshine laws in this state?
Well, I think there's certainly a need for it. This situation does look a little shady in my mind, especially from the outside looking in. They claim it's standard practice. I heard from people within the Snyder administration that they never did this one time, certainly didn't pay somebody off after they were terminated. So I don't know. I'm going to continue looking into this issue, but again, it certainly does look a little shady from my opinion.
Well, it may be standard practice, but other places where this is practiced, you can at least file a Freedom of Information Act request and find out why it was done, or at least look at the confidentiality agreement.
Right.
We don't have that capability here. So for them to say standard practice is a little disingenuous.
Absolutely. And getting back to your point, we do need to have that. And we're working on that right now. I'm part of a FOIA package that would include the legislature and the executive branch. And I'm hopeful we can get that passed and signed by the governor. So this doesn't happen again. We can certainly look into these issues.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, State Representative Pat Outman, because I know Senator Runestad down here has been interested in it. Somehow, there's a lot of folks in the legislature interested in doing this. We just got to get it to the finish line. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see what happens with your lottery bill. Very interesting.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, sir. Appreciate it.
I love the area of the state I'm a Canadian Lakes guy, so I love the area of the state you're from. Take care. When we come back at 8:30, we may have a chance to open the phone lines. We want to know what you think about this, giving multi-state winners anonymity. We'll see if we can get some calls on that for our 8:30 hour. In the meantime, let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First. Your news next on WJR.
Guy, we are watching a couple of accidents out there now. Roseville, 696 westbound at Groesbeck, collision blocks the left lane. A Southfield Freeway southbound after Grand River. This is in Detroit. A wreck there is blocking that right lane. Earlier accident, M59 eastbound before Gratiot, still working to clear slow from North Avenue. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel. Nice sunny start, sunny finish today. A little bit warmer, inching towards 50 on Wednesday. Today, a high of 40 tonight. Cloudy skies, your overnight low 32. Partly to mostly cloudy on Wednesday. We'll see some peaks of sunshine and a high of 52. Just 13 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 2 minutes.
While we've been staying safe at home, scientists have been on a journey. The destination, a COVID-19 vaccine. This journey began decades ago with research.
Is Sean calling us, or are we calling Sean?
I think Sean was supposed to call us.
Okay. I had texted him, so I don't know how he lost my text, but we could also give Mike his number if necessary.
He said he's got a problem, and I've noticed this too. I hate this new Outlook system that we have on our email.
I know why.
Where it splits it into focused versus...
I don't like the long-running conversation.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? They're trying to put it all in one clump, but you end up missing things.
Sean just texted me that he is calling in.
Beautiful, thank you. And then I don't know, I don't have it on the rundown, so we got to make sure Mike knows that. Mike, I'm sure you're listening to us.
Mike,
yeah,
Sean,
I was just adding the podcast. What's up?
Sean Lay is going to be calling in to talk with us about the whole scandal within the fire department about drinking and then crashing fire trucks worth $500,000.
Okay, here at 8:05.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out for him.
And
yeah,
then
it should be a 404 number, I believe, that he's calling in on.
Okay. Rep Berman is calling too at 8:18.
Okay, and then we have a couple people calling in.
Talk about the phones because we don't do a lot of calls, so I'm going to leave it to the two of you to figure out what works best.
I'll just put it in the private chat, like in the afternoon. Does that work, Guy?
That would be awesome.
Okay. That could be Sean Lay right there. Hold on. WJ. Oop. Oh, Mr. Positive, hang on just a second here. I got faked out the interview lineup.
Greg is in a half hour early. I'm so shocked.
The interview line rang. I picked it up. No one was there. And then I picked up. Oh, let's see. Try this again. Guy Gordon Show.
Greg.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for taking some time. We're about 4 minutes away. Do you mind hanging on? Or do you want to call us back in 3 minutes? Beautiful. Thanks. All right. He's there.
And so, Mike, in that interview, I will call for cut 5, the fire commissioner.
Okay, you'll call for it?
Yes, sir.
Also, I hit the EXT button. Habit from the afternoon. For those listening, the EXT button is how we talk to Guy when he's not on StreamYard.
And just for the record, Mike Parsons is the most tolerant human being in the world when the host wants buku cuts.
I know.
Especially during the Whitmer briefings that always come at the most inopportune time of the day.
I'm only tolerant outwardly. On the inside, I'm seething with rage.
Yes, I know, because that's really your go-to. You're just such an angry guy.
Rage.
Well, that's a skill you need in any workplace. To when you're mad, just keep it in.
You have to behave yourself at all times.
That's right.
It works out better that way.
That's right.
How do you like this morning with us?
Once I get past waking up early and no sleep, it's not bad.
Well, you get the rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm having a nice time. No, the rest of the day I'll be useless. About 10:30, I'm gonna be a zombie.
You need a nappy. You got a nap in the shift.
I don't know if my dog will let me though.
Did you take a nap yesterday, Guy?
Oh God, I just wanted an hour, and I went down at 2:00, and at 2:15 the dog comes in and for some reason starts whining. Apparently, I forgot to let her out before I went to bed. So I got a mini nap.
Yeah, you got to have a little nappy.
With all the stuff going on with my dad, I'm not sleeping well anyway. My brain keeps defaulting to him.
Yeah.
It's
not easy. Not easy.
No, it isn't easy.
It's no fun. Especially because you remember your parents like when you were a kid, so it's weird to see them kind of in a frail state.
Well, and for me, it's been almost. I mean, he wasn't frail. Didn't even start to get frail until 85, but it's been 10 years.
Right.
Of that. I mean, usually that window is pretty short.
Right.
But then I think back to what my grandparents were like in their 60s when they were my age. They weren't active. My grandfather died when he was my age. Killed over a massive heart attack, and
you're more active than even me. Well, I mean, I'm not that active, but you're more active than most people I know. That's why every year for Christmas, and I always buy Guy something for pain relief.
Because he knows that the self-damage that I do. I was off to the chiropractor yesterday because
I tweaked something playing golf. I tweaked something playing tennis. I tweaked something playing equestrian or whatever Guy does. One of Guy's 12,000 hobbies outside of this place.
Yeah, the hobbies are going to kill me.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
sorry, at least you'll die doing what you love.
But as I told Mike Wheeler when we were talking, this is the last time my contract came around, and I said, "Yeah, no, I'm going to be working for a while because if I just played golf and tennis every day, I would first of all be a physical wreck, and secondly, I'd just be an angry guy because I'm never going to play as well as I think that I should when I'm retired."
It's true. No, you're right.
Plus,
work is fun. This work is fun.
Well, and then you have the governor signing sweetheart deals with outgoing dictators. So,
I knew that once you really started looking at that, you were all over it.
But the whole transparency, sunshine issue, it isn't just Whitmer. It was the Snyder administration. It was, this is an argument that's gone back to the Blanchard years and before when the first FOIA laws came about. They've all tried to duck it. And the guy that was, who was the Senate Majority Leader ahead of Shirkey?
Before Mike Shirkey? Who was that?
207117.
Find it for you.
But anyway, he didn't want to have anything to do with it.
The Paul W. Smith Show, News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, Guy Gordon.
Well, sometimes you see stories that are similar in nature and you wonder, is this a sign of a bigger problem or are they isolated incidents that should be treated that way? And I'm talking about what's happened with the Detroit Fire Department over the past week, where we have seen 2 incidents of drunk driving, one of them involving a $500,000 ladder rig. And Sean Lay has been doing one of the local 4 defenders at WDIV, a former colleague of mine, doing a great job covering this and joining us to kind of give us the big picture. and also the reaction from authorities. Sean, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. This all kind of unfolded last Sunday night. Call for a woman, 46-year-old, really sick over on the east side. The thing is, there's Squad 6 with that $500,000 heavy rescue truck. There's only 6 of them in the city. So you've got a very specialized firefighter who's in charge of driving that. Those guys made the decision to leave their French Road location, their headquarters, and go to a retirement and promotion party. About 2.2 miles away, so they kind of took themselves out of their area. And they went to the retirement and promotion party. We are told alcohol was flowing freely, and that there's video of guys bringing beer into the retirement and promotion party. However, some of the people, we are told, who were there were on duty, including the driver of the engine of Squad 6. The woman is sick. Her family calls for help. They respond in that Squad 6 engine and hit a parked car once they arrived. Per protocol, he had to go be tested, and he was tested to be over the influence. Guy, that's just where the problems begin, because at that moment, the supervisor with that the guy who was driving the fire engine should have called police, and I'm told he should have been arrested right there, but he wasn't. And then we were told by the fire commissioner that the case was turned over to the police. However, we started asking questions about this on Wednesday. This happened on Sunday. They turned the case over to the police on Wednesday, not on Sunday. They're still investigating. Any attorney that we've spoken with said if it was me or you, we would have been arrested on the spot. So you think, okay, we start hearing then, Guy, from every 10 emails I get saying that there's a culture of drinking within the department on duty. I get 2 other emails saying, no way, these are the best. We know these guys are the best in the country, right? These men and women.
Absolutely.
You know how many fires they get. And they say, look, our guys are stressed out, and sometimes they make a mistake. There is no way that this is a culture problem within the department. So here we are yesterday, and you would think everyone would be on their toes, and we've got Chief number 5. We have the radio calls. They are calling him to a fire. He is supposed to be the head coach of a fire over on the west side, meaning he keeps track of the firefighters. He tells them to come in. He tells them to go out. He calls if EMS is needed. They can't find him, and he's not answering the call at all. And they end up finding him. I'm sure you saw the picture that we.
Oh my God!
Hanging over the lodge.
And for those that are listening that have access to a computer, by all means, call up Sean's piece at clickondetroit.com, because where he was is mind-boggling. He was literally atop some fencing, hanging out over an embankment. He couldn't even get out of his vehicle.
So I made the drive myself. He is stationed over right over at 2nd and Burroughs in Midtown. So I went to that firehouse, and I took the route that he should have taken to get to that fire over on the west side. And you go straight down Baltimore. You got to hang a left on Milwaukee to get up on the lodge. Instead, he went straight. He just took Baltimore where it ended, went through the grass and into the fence, and the fencing kept him from ending up on the lodge where he could have been hurt or he could have killed someone. Now, does that mean the entire department has a drinking problem? I'm hearing from sources that some people say, yes, there has been allowed a culture of on-duty drinking, and others, and especially the union, we're going to hear from them today, they're unhappy with this and unhappy with our reporting, saying, no, we have PTSD cases. We have guys that are completely stressed out. So we're going to hear from the fire commissioner. We're going to hear from the union today about policy changes and cultural changes. And the commissioner himself wants to do a study on that Engine 50 where the retirement party was held, because there's been so many stories of parties there while on duty.
Well, and I want to get to that. I want to get back to that party. But first of all, you took these questions to Eric Jones, the Detroit Fire Commissioner, about whether or not this is a systemic cultural issue or whether these are isolated incidents. Here's what Eric Jones had to say.
I didn't say I don't think that there's an overall issue. Clearly, there is an issue. We had 2 incidents in less than a week where members consumed alcohol. What I do say is that is not representative of the vast majority of the men and women that come in.
And he may be right about that, Sean, but what concerns me is the tolerance of it last weekend. That when we had this one individual show up drunk and on duty and crashed into a parked car, they should have said, well, how many other people on duty were at that same party, and should they be taken off the shift? Did that happen?
It didn't happen. And I'm told by sources high up in this fire department that was a huge mistake, that the person in charge there, one of the assistant chiefs, who was on scene at the crash and took the firefighter to go get tested should have taken his whole crew out of service, because why would they assume that only one person at a retirement party was drinking on duty? And so the other Squad 6 remained in service, which meant someone else drove that fire truck around. It took us a couple of days, but we learned that they did not get any more calls after that, which is probably good news. I mean, we don't know if they were drinking or not, but why assume that only one person was drinking at the time? And we did ask Commissioner Jones. There has been an issue. We hear about department-wide, but also Engine 50 on the east side. There is an email that has made the rounds of an off-duty person, one of the bosses, taking a beer order and using his department email to take the order. And we can show it to you. He'll say, a couple cases of Miller Lite, a couple cases of Blue Moon. What else would you guys like? And delivering it over to the station house. Does that mean the entire department has a drinking problem? We don't know. And that's Eric Jones says he's going to get to the bottom of it. But we constantly hear that this one incident last Sunday really kind of ripped the scab off what many people, the professionals inside that department, are sick of it. They think there's a culture of partying and drinking with some, and they want it to end.
So that's my question, and I don't want you obviously to jeopardize any of your sources, but these people that are calling it saying that this is a cultural problem and widespread, are those retirees that are now kind of being cranky that they're out of the department pointing the finger at guys that are still there, or are they people that are currently active and working in the fire department?
Yeah, great question. They're currently and they're active and working within the department. Actually, the retirees I heard from are saying you're painting the department with a broad brush. You cannot do that. These are isolated incidents. We're actually hearing from people who are in charge, bosses who are looking to the commissioner for more leadership, saying this has to end. We've been complaining about this. We've been pointing to this for a long time. This is not good. It's not a good look. Someone's going to get hurt. We've got to end it. But then we hear from others, like the union head, who says these are isolated, and also saying some of our guys need help, and we'll probably hear a lot about that today. If some people feel the need to drink while on duty, they're going to get some of these men and women help.
And that's key too, because we do know this is a job that brings a lot of stress. There is PTSD involved, and that can exacerbate problems with substances. Sean, a great job reporting. Not surprised by that. That's your stock and trade. And we will look forward to updates this evening on Local 4 News at 5 and 6 to see where this goes. Take care, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks so much.
Sean Lape, Local 4 Defenders. When we come back, is it time to let bars stay open until at 4 a.m.? We'll talk with the state rep that's proposing that, but first let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Exergen. Accuracy matters. Earn a $5 rebate by trading up any non-contact thermometer toward an Exergen purchased at any retailer. Accuracy matters. And Exergen temporal artery thermometers are backed by more than 80 published peer-reviewed clinical studies. Visit Exergen.com.
So finally, this accident in Clinton Township, M59 eastbound before Gratiot, that is clear. 696 westbound at Groesbeck, accident blocks the left shoulder. And an accident also in the way along the Southfield Freeway southbound after Grand River blocks the right lane slow from McNichols. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Michigan's Great Lakes Bay region. When you go great in pure Michigan, you don't have to go far to find your best vacation south. Breathe fresh air on one of our regional trails, sample a taste at your leisure along our beer and wine self-guided tours, or browse our inviting shops and unrivaled antiques. For more rich inspiration and affordable trips, visit gogreat.com.
In pretty good shape now. Skies clear. Much colder air is now spilled on in this morning. A west-northwest breeze. Plenty of blue sky this afternoon. Seasonable 42. Up a few degrees tonight. 31. A little colder in the suburbs. Wednesday, clouds, sunshine, quickly back up near 50. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Staging on News Talk 760 WJR.
Over the years, our Michigan communities have been through many ups and downs, and this year, without question, one of the most...
Hey, Michael, who's that with you?
Face it. But it brings comfort to know that when it comes to our health, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan continue.
I can't tell if that's Rich Lazinski or who that is.
I can't tell if it's Rich or, wait, let's see. It's Rich or Jason.
Our communities. That's why they work with doctors.
Marie just texted me and she said the Sean Lay story, OMG.
Well,
I got to tell you,
It is OMG. It's
I've worked with a lot of great reporters. I mean, I've been privileged. Sean Lay is one of the best reporters I've ever worked with, and he is as obsessed with fairness as any guy I've ever seen. And I'm sure, and he's a huge fan of the guys in the fire department, men and women. I'm sure it's killing him to do this story because I'm sure there are some that are saying, "Hey, this is a betrayal." But you got to ask the question when you see two things like this.
Well, and imagine how irritating this must be to the majority of people in the fire department who are not doing this. I mean, this is clearly a few bad apples.
It's there have been a handful of reporters in this town that were absolutely unethical, horrible, bad people, and they made all of us look bad. I worked with a woman that I didn't work with her. She left right before I got there. But she was caught rifling through private personnel files at somebody's office.
What?
And got canned, thank goodness. But I mean, you look at people like that and you go, how does that person ever, it's just
there.
And thank God they're the rarity.
Yeah.
But Sean is just so good.
This has got to be a few bad apples. It can't be the whole department. I mean, they're not going to be sitting around drinking all night.
No, but it sounded like that night there was a departmental willingness to tolerate it because they didn't take those guys out of service, and they should have. And then they tried to kind of keep it on the down low. But there's this woman who has her car damaged, and she's saying, where do I send the bill for this?
Right.
Who's going to pay me my deductible on this?
And like yesterday, that incident, but for the grace of God, that car would have been on the lodge.
Oh yeah, he would have tumbled.
Yeah.
And I mean, God willing, he was belted in, but
still.
Yes, and for those of you keeping track, Ann and I did not deliberately build a booze segment at from 8 to 8:30.
Oh yeah.
It only looks that way.
What's that tell you, guy?
Not good.
Yeah. Tells me it's time. It's Bloody Mary time. That's what.
Isn't tomorrow Wine Wednesday or something? Rich was telling me about. He says it's off the hook.
We used to do Wine Wednesday, yes, where we would bring a bottle of wine to StreamYard and not drink it, but merely talk about our favorite wine for that particular week.
Oh.
And, yeah, people thought it was interesting, and then they'd go try the wine or whatever.
I went with a lovely Boone's Farm vintage 2 weeks ago. Oh, by the way, Berman is there.
That's funny.
Very apropos, actually, going into Berman here. See, we go from talking about booze off the air to now booze on the air.
As we come in on this segment, would you bring in cut 6, please?
Played over the music?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
This is the way we do it on the Guy Gordon Show, Ann. It's Cutorama.
I like all these cuts. It sounds good.
Let's try to impose as well. I thought I had a break from this. All right, here we go.
Oh, you thought you had a break.
You said cut 6, Guy?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay, here we go.
3600 GOLD. Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Much needed. Oh, yeah, it's greatly needed. But if we have good nights where we have a crowd that wants to stay till 4, well, we can stay open till 4. We have dance parties on Fridays and Saturdays, and most of the kids are not ready to go home at 2:30.
That's George Bucas. He is the proprietor of the Temple Bar, talking about what he thinks would be a good thing, allowing bars to stay open, those that want to, till 4 a.m. It is part of a new piece of legislation that has been brought to the floor by State Representative Ryan Bourbon, Republican from Commerce Township, who joins us live this morning. State Representative Bourbon, always good to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
We know bars and restaurants are hurting big time. Was that the genesis and the inspiration for this?
It's one of them. One of them wasn't initially when I submitted the bill last term, but that's kind of what helped it move because of COVID. And really is what COVID has done is seeing that, we need to help these establishments make up for some lost time. But the impetus really was to just make us more competitive overall with other states, other destinations, when Detroit is on a resurgence, on a comeback, and trying to, one of those things, trying to get some of that convention, tourism, and people coming into the state, where you have New York, Chicago, Miami. You have places like Las Vegas serving 24/7. You have some of these other places where you want to wind down. And, it was more of a competitive thing. And what we've realized now with COVID also is that not everybody's on the same 9-to-5 schedule. People work all different shifts, things like that. And what this does is just give that extra flexibility.
It's do we know in those areas, especially tourism-heavy areas where this has been done, did the revenue justify the offsetting costs? Maybe increases in DUIs, maybe more criminal behavior, more assaults, things like that. Do we know? Is there a template we can point to and say, yeah, it didn't cause as many problems as we thought it might?
Yeah, you know what? When doing the research for this, any of those other kind of problems or issues were negligible on the statistics. When you talk about drunk driving, overall, our drunk driving arrests and convictions have been on a decline since 2010. We have Uber, Lyft, technology. I think people are more aware of the dangers of drinking and driving, now than they were years ago as well. But the most important aspect of this bill, it's all about local control. Right? It's not a one-size-fits-all approach for the entire state where if this bill goes through, all of a sudden all bars are open till 4 a.m. every single day. That's not what it's about. What this bill specifies is that it's up to the local community, whether it's your village, city, or township, to opt in. It has to be an opt-in, so it has to be a good fit for that community, for them to handle it. They have the resources, capability, culture for them. Then they can allow their local establishments to apply to the Liquor Control Commission to have a late night permit, so they don't have to stop serving at 2. And it's for on-premises drinking only, so they can drink 2 to 4. And the locals could even set their own more restrictions around it.
There are others that think just because locals want it doesn't necessarily make it a good thing. Local 4 News spoke with Mike Tobias, who's with Michigan Alcohol Policy Promoting Health and Safety. This is what he had to say. Cut 7, please, Mike.
Most of us know somebody's been hit by a drunk driver. I believe if this legislation passes, you're going to see an increase in drunk driving, crashes, and other alcohol-related injuries like assaults and things.
Representative Mama always said nothing good happens after midnight. I can't imagine that anything better happens after 2 a.m. How concerned are you about that? And when you ask law enforcement, what are they giving? What kind of feedback are they giving you?
Yeah, you know what? It depends on the community. Some communities here in Southeast Michigan have a robust police department, police force. Some don't, at that time. I'm a reserve police officer myself. I typically work midnight shifts, so I know how it is on the road. Again, I think those concerns, though, of saying moving it from 4 a.m. is actually misplaced or misguided. Right now, everybody has to leave the bar at the same exact time. So you're getting everybody out in their cars leaving. Not everybody's going to want to stay out later. What this does is stagger it. A lot of people that are going out now, they know they have to get to the bar by 10 p.m. or midnight. This allows them, again, that shift in schedule where it's just going to be shifting people's times going in and out. Another important aspect is nothing prevents somebody from having a house party, inviting people over and staying as long as they want and drinking and
right.
Again, I don't condone that. We have dram shop laws, so I think it's more to have a more safe and responsible drinking at an establishment that has people looking out and making sure where they have liability if they overserve somebody, if they knowingly let someone who's drunk get in their car and drive away.
Well, and as you point out, then we've got the whole blind pig phenomenon, which we saw was a big problem in Detroit several years ago. I asked my favorite saloon keeper what he thought about it. By the way, I've got several favorite saloon keepers, so I've got a pretty wide body here. But he says, not even a consideration right now for me. Staffing is hard enough to find, and that late at night, they are most likely to have been drinking elsewhere. The security and liability for my establishment would not be worth whatever revenue came in. Are you also hearing that from bar and restaurant owners, that it's really not worth the trouble?
No, but again, it's up to each restaurant or bar to determine for themselves. Again, it's just an option. I talked to some and they said, hey, maybe it makes sense. I talked to a bar owner in East Lansing and in a college town. He said, hey, you know what, maybe one, and this is pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, maybe 1 day a week, maybe one or two, the Friday or Saturday, possibly he would see, but he likes having that option. So again, you don't have to do it. There's nobody. It's not a mandate. It's not saying it. And it has that each establishment. It would be first up to the local community, the local government, and then it would be up to that restaurant or that bar.
We will see where it goes. State Representative Ryan Berman, we certainly appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness on this. And thanks for being on the Paul W. Smith Show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Anytime. I really appreciate it.
All right. From Commerce Township, State Representative Ryan Berman. When we come back, what do you think about this? Do you think it's a good idea, bad idea? If you're a third shifter, we know a lot of morning listeners are. Would you take advantage of it? 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. We will get back to that here on the Paul W. Smith Show right after we check in with Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies. When you talk to a Dell Technologies advisor, they're focused on you, ready to offer tailored solutions powered by Intel vPro platform to keep your small business ready for what's next. Call a Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL.
Still watching two accidents. Well, the one just cleared out there, so that's good. Southfield Freeway southbound after Grand River. That accident is clear. Seeing delays from McNichols. 696 westbound at Groesbeck. This is in Roseville. Accident is blocking that left shoulder. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Clarkston Window and Door. Over 31 years in business, over 450 combined years of experience installing windows. Trust a specialist at Clarkston Window and Door. Act now to take advantage of 31% off install windows, doors, and garage doors. 248-338-6781 or clarkstonwindow.com. Enjoy the sunshine today. There will be plenty of it. A high of 40 tonight. Clear skies, your low 32. Partly to mostly cloudy on Wednesday. Some peaks of sunshine, a high of 52. Sunshine, 16 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 2 minutes.
My doctor says I need spine surgery.
Michael, how are we doing on spots here?
My bad disc and nothing has helped.
Am I making your life difficult?
Don't let this happen to you. At the Disc Institute, our sole purpose is to keep you out of surgery by treating the cause, not just your symptoms. Our high-tech, non-invasive treatments are designed to fix your disc and avoid surgery. If your neck, back, or sciatic pain is due to herniated, degenerative, or bulging discs, call today, 586-416-DISC. That's 586-416-3472.
Hi, folks. Four-time Stanley Cup champion Darren McCarty here with my friend Jeff Morton, Center Director of Pain Free Life Centers in Troy.
Hey, Darren.
Jeff, people keep asking me about Pain Free Life Centers and whether or not I can help with their pain. I keep hearing the same issue. People with back pain, arthritis, neuropathy, sciatica, post-surgical pain, all sorts of pain that I can't even pronounce. So I want them to hear it directly from the man in charge. Can Pain Free Life Centers help these people?
Of course we can, Darren. Our state-of-the-art, FDA-approved, high-intensity, high-dose laser therapy treats pain at the cellular level. We don't use drugs or injections that just mask the pain. We use real science. This promotes real healing. If you're in pain, give us a call. Your consultation and first treatment, totally free.
So they have nothing to lose, correct?
Nothing to lose but their pain, Darren, just like you did.
You heard it from the man. Call my friends at Pain Free Life Centers today. No surgery, no injections, no drugs, and absolutely no side effects. Call 248-879-1100 or go to painfreelifecenters.com. Do it now.
There are calls in Michigan to investigate Governor Gretchen Whitmer's decision to place coronavirus patients in the state's nursing homes.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer's coronavirus policies may have exacerbated the death toll in nursing homes. That from Michigan Republicans, who are seeking to investigate and accusing the state of withholding data. The chair of the House Oversight Committee, Stephen Johnson, saying state officials failed to testify at a hearing last week. Instead, sent a letter.
Pretty much what it said was, well, we're doing everything that we have to. We have the greatest data out there. We're collecting everything like we're supposed to. But they didn't actually share the data with us.
The calls to investigate Governor Whitmer come as embattled New York Governor Andrew Cuomo faces calls for impeachment, in part over his state's handling of nursing home deaths. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
A Detroit fire department.
So I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if it's a story, but Lauren Gibbons is the president of the Society of Professional Journalists Mid-Michigan chapter. And Lauren tweeted out a couple of days ago, please just stop calling me a B or a C for just doing my job for one day. One day, she put in all caps. And it was interesting because it led the publisher of the Alpena News to do a column on the abuse of female reporters in terms of that the feedback they get is much more personal and is sometimes sexist and gender oriented. Something I never experienced. I had a lot of people call me an SOB, but never.
The governor experiences that too. The way people speak about her.
Yeah.
The Senate Majority Leader has said some things that you would not say about a man. And so, yeah, I think it just seems like within the past several years, people have been very tough.
It gets back to that civility thing and the name calling thing. And I don't know if you've seen it, but Netflix has a show called The History of Swear Words. And it's hosted by Nick Cage, and it's done just as to be funny. But it also explores the origins of some of these words and how they've evolved over the years. And there was one about the B word specifically. And but it just and I have heard that from some female reporters and colleagues before that with social media it's gotten really harsh.
Yeah. What did she do that has caused this?
It makes it sound like when somebody disagrees with her, and yeah, and he reached out to Emily Lawler as well, who does a lot of political stuff. I don't know what Lauren's beat is, but he reached out to Emily, and because Emily covers Lansing, she gets a lot of the partisan related stuff.
It does go back to the civility problem, though.
Yeah,
do you really have to be that rude?
Well, and you're gonna, anybody in this business had better have a pretty thick skin when you get in anyway. Yes. And you're going to be called a lot of things, but I don't know that anything that nasty is going to be one of them.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're going to be called a fair amount, that's for sure.
So did you see this thing, and this could be one for tomorrow, CNN just put it out, the business enterprise that controls the copyrights to all of Dr. Seuss's books?
Yes, I saw this.
Is basically going to self-censor. And they're getting rid of two of my favorites, If I Ran the Zoo and McGilligan's Pool.
Oh.
That I'm sure my mom still has somewhere. And apparently it's anti-Asian and some white supremacist stereotypes. And they're going back into things that he wrote in the 1920s that, it's like, okay, he may have done some things then that weren't considered bad.
This
but now,
says 6 books.
Right. So I said 6 books, but two of them that I'm two of my favorites.
What are the ones that are your favorites?
McGilligan's Pool and
If I Ran the Zoo.
If I Ran the Zoo. They had If I Ran the Zoo and If I Ran the Circus, and they were both terrific.
So what's the problem is that they are
Oriental stereotyping, African American stereotyping, and insensitivity, but they've been constantly harping on Seuss because he did some caricatures and things in the 1920s which now are perceived to be racist. Well, we've all evolved, we're all enlightened. We didn't have the same mores and folkways back then. He should he have been more enlightened? Maybe, but again, we keep transposing our modern morality on something that's now almost 100 years old, which, and I get it, but in this case, it's just kind of an interesting.
Guy, we're back in 30. Greg is calling about the
lotto ticket,
and Dave did try. I think that's the dude.
Yep.
He's calling on the 4 a.m. bar time. So that's what we have right now in the hopper. I'm sure we'll get more as you throw the number out.
We've got to train these listeners to call in on this show.
Yep, we need some training. Let's put it that way.
Oh, at WJR.com/MEDC.
Ham.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good one.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
So we welcome in your calls on this. We've got two subjects on the grill, two topics in the hopper right now. One, should bars be allowed to open beyond the 2 a.m. closing time to 4 a.m.? As Representative Berman pointed out, his bill calls for really putting it into the hands of the local municipalities. They will still have the final say whether they want that in their community. I've got bar owners saying that it would be a big help to them. That depends on their locale, how tourism-oriented they may be, whether they're third shifters in their area. And then on the other hand, I'm hearing from bar owners saying, look, that's the last thing I need. There'd be competitive pressure to stay open till 4. I can't even get people to stay till 2. There are liability and security concerns here that I don't want to have to deal with because the people that are coming in after 2 are already ripped. And so there's a lot going on there. And then this other topic about whether or not we should have, for multi-state lotteries, we should give people the option to have anonymity. Right now in Michigan, they are forced to go public with the fact that they won the Mega Millions or the Powerball. We've got a state rep that says we should grant them anonymity for their own security and privacy. 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. Mr. Positive, Greg in Shelby Township, first up here on the Paul W. Smith Show. Hi, Greg. You followed me to mornings. We appreciate that.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, concerning the lottery anonymity, I think there's a sense of public expectation. You bought it in public, you follow the rules, you do it in public, you eat in public, it's on camera everywhere. So I don't think there's I don't think you can claim anonymity because the rules say that if you win, you have to tell the world. And I would love to be the winner and tell the world, and because I would give most of it away to charity. I mean, don't be afraid. I mean, be a little bit more cautious in your everyday life. But heck, let me win $1 billion and, to save the world. And the other subject,
Well, real quick, let me ask you this before we jump topics, and that is, if you had young children that could be targeted for kidnapping, would you feel the same way?
Great question, Guy. I guess, personally, no, but because there are laws that we have to follow, then yes, unequivocally. But you can always take measures to do that. That's a great question. So what? Don't play the lottery. I guess maybe don't play. Yeah. I mean, if you have a what do you call a setback, or you're not 7 feet tall to play basketball, but you're 6'2". Well, I'm not going to play basketball. I mean, it might be a misappropriate analogy, but misapplied. But that's a great question, but until we do the laws and we go through the changing of the bill, then maybe. But that's a great question.
Well, the other thing is, if you got that kind of money, you can probably hire some pretty good private security. if you're concerned, if you're concerned about that. Greg, take care. You have a great Tuesday. Let's go to David in Detroit. Dude, how are you? And are you on board with opening bars till 4 a.m.?
Did I lose you?
No, I think we just had a little technical problem there, but we've got you now, David. Go ahead.
Hey, great to talk to you in the morning. I was just standing in my kitchen with the sun shining in and my 4-month-old baby in my hand. So life.
Oh, you lucky devil.
Hey, you know what, guy? On both your subjects, life, liberty, privacy, property, and the pursuit of happiness. It all applies in this beautiful country of ours, doesn't it?
It does. So is that a yes on 4 a.m. and a yes on anonymity?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, anytime you allow more freedom, that's better for everybody. When you allow the markets to determine what the need is based on what people want and their desires, then absolutely. There's going to be bars that choose to close, as they always do, at midnight. I've gone to bar restaurants that do that. Some will stay closed at 2. They're not going to feel pressure from somebody else because they're going to have the attitude, like you said, I can't keep the staff. The drinks will come in and it's not worth the revenue. People are going to make their choices. And in terms of, all the concerns of increased drunk driving and all of this, it's not government's job to play pre-crime. It's government's job to set the level playing field and people can make their choices for themselves. And especially during a pandemic. So I don't see anywhere in that Constitution where it reads, you can have all of these freedoms except when there's a pandemic.
All right, David. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll connect. We're going to be here till Thursday, so please try the veal and join us again. Gosh, so many callers, and I'd love to spend more time. And we may have a chance to do that, but we're going to connect with Frank next on the Paul W. Smith Show to see what's ahead. In the meantime, let's check in with Dana Clark and find out what your morning commute looks like.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies. When you talk to a Dell Technologies advisor, they're focused on you, ready to offer tailored solutions powered by Intel vPro platform to keep your small business ready for what's next. Call a Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL.
Yeah, Mark.
Block that left shoulder delayed along 75 northbound between 9 and 12 Mile. Also slow traffic along 94 westbound between Gratiot and 12 Mile. Now WJR weather first from the Weather Channel.
I promised you colder air, and it's here this morning. West-northwest breeze adding an extra bite to the air. Mostly sunny, though. Mostly sunny this afternoon. Breezy 42. Tonight, clear, milder 31 in town. Suburbs colder. Tomorrow, mixed
Have you had Dave Dudenhofer call in before?
No.
So that David from Detroit is Dave Dudenhofer. Call him. He's Dave the Dude. He ran for Congress against Rashida Tlaib as a Republican.
Oh.
You talk about a quixotic journey. He is such a great guy, but he's also very good on the Constitution.
Okay. Is he an attorney or?
No, just a regular guy. His wife, I think, works at Henry Ford as a nurse. Arch conservative. So conservative may even be libertarian. Love him to death because he and I can disagree. He's never disagreeable. But he is really a thoughtful guy. But I think he is the 8th district chair of the Republican Party.
Oh, okay. That's
so he's and really an interesting character.
So, question here, Mike, how many spots do we have left?
Out of this break, we'll have 3 minutes, including Gupta. So 3 minutes altogether, 1 spot and then Gupta. So 3 minutes.
Okay, and
Did
then
you get my text about
more of the what's the latest on? Okay, so you could keep going. So Frank's not available.
Yeah,
no, he's not.
Going with some calls.
Oh, that's fine.
So Tom dropped, so we still have Richard and Gloria.
Okay.
So what does Laura do? She normally puts a little.
Well, that's too bad. I love talking with Frank.
It says here that he's got a tape that's running late.
Yeah, they had a tape that was supposed to happen at 8:30.
You mean the Frank Beckman show isn't completely live? I'm outraged as a listener. You've pulled one over on me.
We destroyed the magic of radio.
By the way, do I have any tapings today?
No, you don't have any tapings. It is nice to get a taping though for the early 6 o'clock. You know that 6:18.
The when I'm not totally awake yet.
Yeah, well, when none of us are totally awake, that's always a good. Oh, there's Okay. So you've got Richard and Gloria?
Yeah, they're still on the line.
Have you ever had Gloria on, Ann?
She's great.
She is a character. She's got to be old enough to carbon date, but she is hysterical and
she's tough.
We had Gloria on. No.
There was some guy.
I might recognize the voice.
She told that story. What? Someone called her out for wearing a mask in the grocery store, and I don't know. She said she'd kick his butt or something. I mean, she told the story better, but what's that? Yeah, she's a spitfire.
She said it was some dude wearing MAGA gear who started ripping on her. She was still pushing her cart. She had just left the grocery store. She was pushing her cart. She hadn't taken her mask off yet. And he starts ripping on her in the parking lot for wearing a mask, and you're just a sheep and you've given up all your freedoms. She's an older lady, highly vulnerable. But she says, "Boy, did I give him a piece of my mind." You'll listen to her. She's just, I can hear her doing it. It's like, you know what? Stop the mask shaming on both sides.
Leave people alone. Oh my
Just stop it with the shaming.
Alone, right. Oh
so
my
we'll put our outcome at traffic at 5550 there, Ann and Guy.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I picked up with Gloria and Richard because you didn't know we didn't have Frank, so I think that's why we lost one call. But like I said, if you throw it out, we'll probably get a few more.
Yeah.
25 seconds here.
All right. I'll be back. I'm posting our podcast, so they're all up there now. So we're all set.
Wonderful.
All right.
Department of Health and Human Services Gambling Disorder Helpline at 800-270-7117. 21 and older, Michigan only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full terms and conditions. Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
So two topics in the hopper right now, as we said, whether or not we should extend the closing time at bars till 4 a.m. and whether or not those that win multi-state lottery prizes, the big ones, the Mega Millions, the Powerball, whether or not they should be allowed to keep their anonymity. The lottery commissioners have said, look, they're important for two reasons. One, it lends credibility. You see an honest-to-God person holding up the check, winning it, so it shows we actually pay it out. And two, it's a marketing tool. Those pictures with those people holding up those giant-sized checks sell a lot of lottery tickets. Don't know that I agree with that. I think the billboards actually do a much better job showing me how big that jackpot is. But Frank's a little tied up with something. We can't connect with him right now, but we are looking to connect with you at 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. Let's go to Richard from Chelsea. Richard, good morning.
Good morning to you. Listen, I have a couple of ideas on it. Isn't it already in the works that the location that sold the ticket is made public? I believe that's the case. And also, if I go to the casino or I go to the racetrack and I hit a big amount of money, I'm under no obligation to divulge that to anybody. But I think that the idea that to force somebody to acknowledge that they won a big lottery, I don't believe that's a good idea, because there could be implications that we don't even know about.
I think so, Richard, and you know, especially family considerations. We know it can make you a target for scammers. There's a lot of good reasons for doing it, but how about this one? I've had people say, look, I kind of mistrust government. I want to see that the state-sponsored lottery is really paying that money out. And if I don't see it, I'm going to assume that they're keeping it in the coffers. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say don't buy a lottery ticket. If you're that suspicious, you shouldn't be buying a lottery ticket. I think you'd be better off go play bingo.
Or how about saving it up and investing in America through one of our fine corporations? You know, find a good stock to invest in, or maybe a startup. Richard, you take care. Have a great day in Chelsea. I want to connect with Gloria and anyone else, by the way, that wants to call in, 1-800-859-0957. Gloria in Clinton Township, good morning to you. Is Gloria there, Michael?
I guess she must have dropped, Guy.
Please don't tell me we lost Gloria, one of my favorite peeps from our afternoon show. She always has an interesting take on this. I mean, Mike, you were there when we had this conversation on our afternoon program, and I was shocked at the number of people that just said, hey, I don't trust government, and if I don't see them paying it out, I'm going to assume it wasn't paid. Do you think that's a widespread opinion, or maybe just a few of our listeners who happen to get through?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like more people are more distrusting of like a third cousin they've never heard of asking for a bad investment if they win, or that's me. I'm more skeptical of people who might be after my money if I won the lottery than I am the government faking us out. I mean, I'm with you. I don't really think that having a winner does that much promotion. I think the fact that you have a chance to win $500 million or whatever, winning a lottery ticket. I mean, I think they sell themselves. I'm for keeping it anonymous because I know if I won that much money, I wouldn't want people to know.
Yeah, I tend to agree there because this is a different circumstance. This isn't a couple $100,000. It's not a couple million. It's mega bucks. And you feel the same way. And have you ever talked to anybody and followed up? I've never done a follow up with anybody that won one of the big ones. And I know that it's really, I have seen studies showing that it's way overstated how many blow it and have problems. The vast majority live a very good lifestyle and manage it pretty well.
Well, if people are worried, Guy, about transparency, they do reveal where the ticket was sold, and the store owner or, whomever, the manager, does say, yes, that ticket was sold here. So we know that part of it happens. If that's what some people who are worried about that, they want to know who won. I kind of think it needs to stay private. I can't imagine if you were this big winner from recently, the what is it, $1 billion plus? Can you imagine that?
Yeah, like I said, it's a wonderful problem to have for people, right. but by the same token, it isn't something that life planned for you. It's not like you were born to wealth and you knew that you were going to have to manage all this money and all the unintended consequences that come with it. And yeah, the retailer has to give it up because they get the commission, but that doesn't identify anybody individually. Let's go to Rod. Is it Roy in Plymouth or Rod in Plymouth to see what he has to say about this? Good afternoon or good morning. I'm still on the wrong side. Hey, is this Rod or Roy?
Roy, how you doing, Guy?
It's good to have you, sir. We have a Rod that phones in frequently on my show. That's what threw me for a loop. What do you think about this?
I had a comment on the lottery. I had a real good friend whose sister won the lottery about 15 years ago in Ann Arbor, and it wasn't a very large amount. It was like $2.2 million or something, and it literally wrecked her life. She had calls from insurance companies to investment companies to family members she had to move. It was so anonymity, I believe, is absolutely people's choice. And after I watched what happened to her, if I won, there's no way in heck I would tell anyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I don't know how you keep it anonymous because obviously your lifestyle is going to change. I think people are going to say, gosh, what happened to Bill and Carol there? All of a sudden, they're driving the Tesla. They've got a vacation home up north. He must have hit the lottery. I don't know how much anonymity you would actually have amongst your friends and associates and family members. I don't know how you can keep that really secret.
Well, that's true, but I still believe in freedom of choice. So I think that you should be able to decide whether you want to let folks know or not. I don't think that's the state's right.
Well, and there's a difference between letting close friends and family know about it and telling the world and having yourself on a billboard holding that big, massive plastic check. Well, Ann and I and Marie and Dana and Mike will be back to do it all again tomorrow bright and early at 5:30. We hope you'll join us again here on News Talk 760 or perhaps on our WJR Facebook page. The Frank Beckman Show is next. Couldn't chat with Frank today, but I promise you this, it will be fascinating. That's next on WJR. We'll see you tomorrow. But first, let's check in with Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
696 westbound at Groesbeck, that is, an accident is blocking the left shoulder. 75 northbound, slow between 9 and 12 mile. Also 75 southbound.
All right, Michael, and thank you for a wonderful morning.
Yeah,
Well, Guy, great job. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll chat with you in a little while.
and we'll get Marie on for the whole roundtable tomorrow.
It sounds like it was Ray sent me a note. He said it really is as simple as just turning it off and
Yeah, the old reboot.
turning it back on.
And you found my levels were okay throughout the show, Mike? That's the only reservation I have about staying on StreamYard.
Yeah, they were fine to me.
Okay. Well, thanks to all of our Facebook friends and listeners. We appreciate your comments. We got to do that living the dream thing either tomorrow or Thursday before I go back to my regular haunt.
Before you go back to living the dream. Oh, we lost Mike.